They say time buries everything, cities, empires, even memories. But some places don't simply fade away. They vanish. Entire civilizations swallowed by deserts, drowned beneath silent seas, or erased by forces no one can fully explain. What happened to them? From shimmering kingdoms said to lie beneath the waves, to cities whose lights once burned in the heart of forgotten jungles, these lost worlds whisper through the ruins, calling us back with unanswered questions. Each discovery uncovers not just stone and sand, but stories of brilliance, ambition, and a mystery that refuses to die. What if beneath our feet still lie entire worlds waiting to be rediscovered? These are not myths. They are echoes of real places, cities that existed, thrived, and disappeared into legend. So sit back, relax, and let's journey into the shadows of time to uncover the lost cities that disappeared mysteriously and terrifyingly. Nestled along the sun-scorched banks of the Euphrates River, where the desert stretches endlessly toward the horizon, lie the remnants of a city that once pulsed with life and ambition. Mari. From a distance, the tell, or mound, rises subtly above the flat landscape, its dusty contours betraying nothing of the grandeur that once thrived here. The wind sweeps across the ruins, carrying grains of sand that whisper secrets of a civilization long buried, its stories almost lost to time. To stand here is to confront both the immensity of history and the fragility of human achievement. Mari was no ordinary settlement. Flourishing between roughly 2,900 and 1,759 BCE, it became a crucial hub of trade, politics, and culture in the ancient Near East. Its strategic location along the Euphrates allowed it to bridge the worlds of Mesopotamia and the Levant, connecting empires, merchants, and travelers. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of sprawling streets, monumental gates, and massive walls that enclosed neighborhoods, temples, and palaces. Among these, the royal palace stands out, not simply for its scale, which is extraordinary by the standards of the time, but for the meticulous artistry found in its construction. Thousands of clay tablets, inscribed in cuneiform, speak of kings and priests, trade agreements, military campaigns, and rituals, each tablet a fragile testament to a civilization that thrived, planned, and governed with sophistication. And yet, for all the clarity that these discoveries bring, Mari retains an aura of mystery. The city's sudden and complete collapse around 1759 BCE raises questions that remain unanswered. The narrative preserved in the cuneiform tablets ends abruptly with the reign of Zimri-Lim, the last known king of Mari. According to historical records, Hammurabi of Babylon led a campaign that destroyed the city. Yet some scholars argue that the scale of the devastation suggested in the archaeological record hints at forces beyond mere conquest. Could there have been environmental pressures at play? Perhaps shifting rivers, prolonged drought, or sudden climatic shifts weakened the foundations of this urban jewel. Or might there have been political intrigues, betrayals, and internal unrest that accelerated its fall? Even today, the precise circumstances remain open to speculation. The artifacts themselves offer a quiet yet compelling enigma. Among the palace ruins, archaeologists discovered intricately designed rooms, elaborate murals, and symbolic motifs carved into clay and stone. Some panels depict what appears to be ritualistic ceremonies or processions, while others show animals and scenes whose meanings are not fully understood. Could these images represent spiritual beliefs now lost to time? Or are they records of events, coded in a visual language that we are only beginning to decipher? The further one studies Mari, the more it becomes evident that each discovery opens more questions than it answers, revealing a civilization whose depth and complexity continue to challenge modern understanding. Even the layout of Mari contributes to the sense of mystery. The city's urban planning reflects both deliberate design and seemingly chaotic growth. Streets intersect at unusual angles, neighborhoods vary in scale, and the palace occupies a commanding position that dominates the surrounding dwellings. Scholars debate whether this represents a conscious effort to reflect social hierarchy and religious centrality, or whether it is the result of centuries of expansion, adaptation, and reinvention. Whatever the case, the city's design hints at a society that balanced order with flexibility, strategy with culture, a society that understood the delicate interplay between human ambition and the natural environment. There is also the question of what remains hidden. Mari, despite decades of excavation, has not revealed all of its secrets. Many sections of the tell remain unexcavated, protected by layers of sand and time. Scholars speculate that beneath these untouched areas lie additional tablets, perhaps chronicles of wars yet unrecorded, detailed economic records, or accounts of daily life that could reshape our understanding of this ancient city. Could there be evidence of external influences that we have yet to identify, or artifacts that challenge our notions of technological development in the 3rd millennium BCE? Each unexplored chamber, each untouched mound, carries the promise of discovery and the reminder that the story of Mari is far from complete. Beyond its material remains, Mari also invites reflection on the ephemeral nature of human achievement. Here was a city that commanded rivers and trade routes, whose kings corresponded with neighbors across vast distances, whose artisans crafted works of precision and beauty. And yet, within a few decades, it was reduced to ruins, its streets empty, its walls silent. Time has preserved fragments of its existence, but the fullness of its story has been lost to history. Standing among the ruins, one cannot help but feel the tension between what was known and what remains forever elusive. The lives of people who walked these streets, the decisions that shaped empires, and the subtle forces that can elevate a city to greatness only to see it vanish. Mari also challenges our perception of mystery and history. The city is real, tangible, and thoroughly documented, yet it carries the aura of legend. Its disappearance, while historically explicable to some degree, retains a poetic ambiguity. What made Mari rise so swiftly? What caused it to fall so decisively? And perhaps most intriguingly, what else might lie buried beneath the sands, waiting for a future generation to piece together the fragments of a civilization that once commanded the heart of the ancient world? As we explore Mari, it becomes clear that the city is not merely an archaeological site. It is a doorway into questions that extend beyond history, into the realms of human ambition, fragility, and resilience. It invites us to imagine a world that existed thousands of years ago, a world both familiar and alien, and to wonder what other cities like it may lie hidden, lost, and silent, waiting to tell their stories. Beyond the known borders of Europe and Asia, where the vast steppes stretch endlessly beneath a sky of shifting grays and blues, there lies a region long cloaked in both history and mystery, Tartary. To the medieval cartographer, it was a land of giants and nomads, of sweeping plains, frozen rivers, and cities whose size and wealth seemed almost unimaginable. At the heart of this enigmatic expanse, accounts speak of a capital, a seat of power and culture that governed a realm stretching from the Ural Mountains to the edges of Siberia. Yet, despite the references in maps, chronicles, and travelers' tales, this capital has never been conclusively identified. Its very existence teeters between historical record and legend, leaving us with a puzzle as vast as the steppes themselves. The landscape of the region evokes both awe and isolation. Endless grasslands, dotted with low hills and meandering rivers, stretch toward distant mountains. Harsh winters descend with little warning, snow covering the ground for months at a time, and summer brings fierce winds that can erase tracks within hours. To the traveler of the past, Tartary was both a challenge and a lure, a place of boundless space, untamed nature, and stories of cities built with precision and splendor, yet hidden from the outside world. In this wilderness, the great Tartary capital is said to have stood, a sprawling city of stone and timber, fortified yet harmonious with its environment, commanding trade routes and connecting distant peoples across an immense land. Historical references to Tartary are fragmentary but intriguing. European maps from the 16th and 17th centuries depict enormous cities in the heart of the steppes, sometimes labeled Capital of Tartary or the Great City of the Tartars. Contemporary travelers, from Marco Polo to Russian explorers, recount tales of vast settlements, opulent palaces, and marketplaces teeming with merchants from distant lands. These cities were said to hold wealth in gold, silver, and textiles, and to be centers of knowledge, where astronomers studied the stars and scholars recorded events with meticulous care. Yet, when explorers attempted to locate these cities, they found little more than abandoned ruins or vast expanses of uninhabited land. The capital seemed to vanish as quickly as it was described, leaving behind whispers and shadows rather than solid proof. The disappearance of the capital has prompted centuries of speculation. Some historians suggest that these accounts were exaggerations, misunderstandings born from distant observations of seasonal settlements, caravan hubs, or nomadic encampments. Others argue that environmental factors, harsh winters, flooding rivers, or shifting steppe conditions could have destroyed structures and scattered populations, leaving little trace. And yet, there are hints that the city may have been deliberately hidden or destroyed. Chronicles speak of invasions, internal conflicts, and political upheavals, all capable of erasing even the largest urban centers. Could it be that the great Tartary capital was abandoned in haste, swallowed by the vast land it ruled, leaving few signs for later generations to follow? The physical evidence that survives is tantalizing but incomplete. Archaeologists have identified ruins scattered across Siberia and Central Asia, fortified settlements, kurgans, and burial mounds that may represent remnants of urban centers once part of Tartary's network. Some structures reveal advanced architectural techniques, unusual masonry, and layouts suggesting centralized planning, while others hint at ritual or ceremonial purposes. Satellite imagery and ground surveys occasionally reveal rectilinear patterns in the steppe, leading some researchers to speculate that buried foundations lie beneath the soil, awaiting discovery. Yet no site has been definitively confirmed as the capital, and the gaps between reports, maps, and ruins fuel both curiosity and skepticism. Beyond the historical and archaeological dimensions, the great Tartary capital occupies a unique place in imagination and cultural memory. Folklore portrays it as a city of extraordinary size and sophistication, where rulers governed vast territories with wisdom and discipline, where libraries contained knowledge lost elsewhere, and where ordinary life coexisted with opulent displays of power. Some theories push even further, suggesting that Tartary's cities were connected by underground networks, or that climate changes buried portions of them under rivers and permafrost, effectively rendering them invisible to later explorers. Others entertain the idea that the capital may have been deliberately hidden from outsiders, protected by natural barriers or secrecy, a concept not unfamiliar in other historical contexts. The city becomes not only a subject of inquiry but also a mirror for human fascination with the unknown, a reminder that the past can be as enigmatic as it is tangible. Even the scale of the city remains a source of wonder. Descriptions from early travelers suggest it may have housed tens of thousands of inhabitants, featuring markets, temples, palaces, and administrative complexes spread over vast expanses. How such a settlement could function sustainably in a region marked by extreme winters, limited resources, and seasonal isolation is a question that continues to perplex scholars. Did Tartary possess logistical systems sophisticated enough to support large populations? Were there agricultural innovations or trade networks lost to history that made such urban density possible? Each of these questions deepens the sense of mystery surrounding the city and its vanished civilization. There is also a symbolic dimension to the great Tartary capital. Like Kitezh, it exists in the intersection of reality and imagination, recorded in maps, texts, and oral histories, yet resisting confirmation. It challenges modern researchers to reconcile historical documentation with tangible evidence, forcing reflection on how civilizations can flourish, dominate, and vanish without leaving clear traces. It raises broader questions. How much of history is lost to environmental change, political upheaval, or simple human neglect? And how many cities, once central to the lives of thousands, remain hidden beneath earth, sand, or snow, awaiting rediscovery? As one contemplates the vast steppes, stretching under a sky that shifts from storm to sun to twilight within hours, it becomes clear that the great Tartary capital is more than a vanished city. It is a question mark etched across the landscape of history, a challenge to both imagination and inquiry. What was its true scale? How advanced were its structures, its culture, and its society? And what remnants, if any, lie undisturbed beneath the soil, frozen in time by forces beyond our comprehension? The capital may never reveal itself fully. Yet, in the windswept plains, in the patterns of rivers, in the faint outlines captured from above, it lingers, inviting us to ask not only where it was, but how it continues to shape our understanding of lost civilizations. Like the cities that came before and after it, the great Tartary capital whispers through history, asking us to consider the fragility of human achievement, the persistence of memory, and the mysteries that still await beneath the surface of the world we think we know. As the echoes of ancient cities fade into the shifting sands of history, some places refuse to remain buried entirely. One such city whispers across the misted waters of Russian legend, Kitezh. Unlike Mari, whose stones and clay bear witness to centuries of human endeavor, Kitezh exists in a liminal space between memory and myth, between landscape and imagination. The very idea of it is inseparable from the dense forests and serene lakes of central Russia, where the waters of Lake Svetloyar lie still under a cold, pale sun. On quiet mornings, mist drifts across the lake, curling around dark pines, blurring the line between reality and story, as if the city itself were breathing just beneath the surface. According to chronicles and oral traditions, Kitezh was a city of remarkable beauty, built at a time when Russia's vast wilderness was dotted with scattered settlements and trading posts. Its streets were said to be paved with stone, its walls sturdy, and its churches adorned with icons that glimmered in the sunlight. The city thrived as a spiritual center, governed by both faith and strategy, a place where monks and merchants walked alongside rulers whose wisdom and ambition shaped the surrounding lands. And yet, in the 13th century, legend claims, the city disappeared from the world of the living, vanishing beneath the waters of Lake Svetloyar, hiding from Mongol invaders who sought to conquer it. The historical record provides fragments of context. Chronicles from Novgorod and surrounding regions reference cities along the Volga and in the Russian heartland being threatened, besieged, or abandoned during the Mongol invasions. Some scholars suggest that Kitezh may have been a real settlement, destroyed or evacuated in the face of such threats. Yet, The unique way the story survived, the accounts of a city that did not simply fall but submerged itself into the lake, adds a layer of intrigue that no ordinary historical event can fully explain. How much of Kitezh was grounded in reality, and how much shaped by centuries of oral storytelling? Did the lake truly conceal the city, or did time itself create a memory powerful enough to blur fact and legend? The details that survive are both precise and enigmatic. It is said that those who approached Lake Svetloyar could hear the ringing of church bells from beneath the water, or glimpse rooftops shimmering under the lake's surface, visible only to the pure of heart. Some accounts claim that in winter, when the waters freeze, a faint outline of streets and buildings appears under the ice, like a ghostly map of a vanished civilization. Pilgrims and mystics have claimed visions of Kitezh in dreams, guided by the soft reflection of the moon on the lake, suggesting that the city exists not only in space, but in perception. Could these experiences be echoes of a real city, remembered through generations and transformed into something ethereal? Or are they the product of hope, longing, and a culture's deep desire to protect what was once precious? Archaeologists have approached Kitezh with both skepticism and curiosity. Surveys of Lake Svetloyar have revealed ancient artifacts along its shores, ceramics, fragments of timber, and iron tools that could suggest settlements existed nearby. Yet no definitive underwater structures have been confirmed, leaving the mystery tantalizingly unresolved. Some researchers speculate that changes in the water table, sedimentation, or even geological shifts could have concealed the remnants of Kitezh, preserving them in a state that eludes conventional excavation. Could it be that beneath the serene waters of the lake lies an entire city, silent and waiting, protected by nature itself from the decay of time and human interference? Kitezh also occupies a remarkable position in Russian cultural consciousness. The city's story appears in literature, folklore, and music, most famously in Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov's opera, which romanticizes the idea of a holy city saved from desecration by divine waters. Over centuries, the legend has woven itself into identity and imagination, blurring the line between what can be historically verified and what exists as narrative, as moral and spiritual lesson. Kitezh challenges our assumptions about history. Can a city that exists primarily in memory, testimony, and symbol be as real as one with bricks and walls? What role does collective imagination play in preserving the essence of a civilization that has disappeared from the physical world? The geography itself reinforces the mystery. Lake Svetloyar lies amid dense forest, difficult to access, especially in earlier centuries. Its depth and the clarity of its waters vary dramatically with the seasons, sometimes revealing patterns in the sediment, or odd discolorations that some claim are remnants of buildings. Modern technology, sonar mapping, underwater archaeology, and even satellite imagery has provided glimpses of unusual formations, though none can be definitively identified as man-made. Every probe seems to raise more questions. Could Kitezh have been a city of stone, later submerged naturally? Was it constructed of perishable materials that the lake has hidden from view? Or does the city exist in a state between reality and dream, its story preserved in the hearts of those who tell it? Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Kitezh is its philosophical dimension. Unlike other lost cities, whose disappearance can be attributed to conquest, plague, or natural disaster, Kitezh is said to have chosen its own disappearance, retreating beneath the lake to protect itself from violence. The city's fate is not merely a cautionary tale about the fragility of human achievement. It is a meditation on memory, purity, and preservation. What does it mean for a place to vanish, yet remain vivid in consciousness? How does a society maintain connection to something it can no longer touch? The legend of Kitezh invites us to ponder not only the physical traces of history, but the emotional and spiritual weight that cities carry across time. As one contemplates the lake's still surface, reflecting the muted sky and shadowed trees, it is difficult not to wonder what lies beneath. Are the ruins of Kitezh preserved, silent beneath layers of silt and water? Or is the city's true existence bound to imagination, a mirror of human hope, longing, and the desire for sanctity in a turbulent world? Each ripple of the water seems to carry both promise and ambiguity, an invitation to explore, to question, and to imagine. Kitezh reminds us that not all mysteries can be unraveled with shovels and sonar, that some cities remain elusive not because of what they lack, but because of what they inspire. Its story continues to surface in whispers, through mist, through folklore, and through the quiet curiosity of those who seek it. And so, the question lingers, as the lake keeps its secrets. What truly rests beneath these waters, and what else might history still hide, waiting for a patient eye to uncover it? As the echoes of vanished empires stretch across continents, some cities leave only fragments, teasing us with glimpses of brilliance that once existed. Beyond the well-trodden ruins of Harappa, the jewel of the Indus Valley civilization, lies a mystery that has puzzled archaeologists and historians alike. The existence of a sister city, an urban center that appears repeatedly in surveys and satellite imagery, yet remains largely unexcavated, hidden beneath layers of earth and time. To stand on the plains of the Indus, where the monsoon-stained soil meets the horizon, is to feel both the immensity of the past and the elusiveness of its traces. The air is thick with history, and the mind cannot help but wander to a civilization that flourished in precision, order, and ingenuity, and then seemingly vanished without explanation. Harappa itself provides a model of what this sister city might have been. Streets laid out in perfect grids, sophisticated drainage systems, standardized bricks, and public granaries reveal an urban planning mastery unrivaled in its time. But the sister city, located somewhere along the same river network, remains largely concealed, known only through hints in pottery fragments, partial walls, and geophysical surveys. Its precise location is debated. Some propose areas near the Ravi River, while others suggest hidden sites along minor tributaries feeding the Indus. What is clear is that this settlement shared the hallmarks of the Indus Valley's advanced urban culture, yet for reasons unknown, it did not survive. Or perhaps it was intentionally abandoned, lost beneath centuries of shifting soil, river migration, and climatic change. The mystery deepens when we consider the historical context. The Indus Valley civilization thrived between approximately 2600 and 1900 BCE, a period of remarkable sophistication. Trade networks extended across South and Central Asia, connecting urban centers with distant regions. Artisans produced finely crafted jewelry, pottery, and seals, and the cities themselves suggest a society deeply attuned to balance, sanitation, and communal governance. Yet by around 1900 BCE, these cities, including Harappa and possibly its sister city, were abandoned. Scholars debate the causes. Environmental factors such as river shifts, flooding, or droughts may have rendered agriculture unsustainable. Others consider socio-political changes, such as internal migration, trade collapse, or conflict, as potential catalysts for depopulation. And then there are the anomalies, the fragments that do not fit neatly into these explanations. Why do some areas of the supposed sister city show signs of rapid abandonment, while neighboring settlements appear to have persisted longer? Why do some artifacts suggest continuity with later cultures, yet the urban framework itself disappears? Archaeological evidence offers both clarity and uncertainty. Surveys and satellite imagery reveal geometric patterns in soil and vegetation, rectilinear outlines that echo Harappa's street grids, suggesting an organized urban plan beneath the surface. Pottery shards, seals, and tools discovered in these areas hint at active habitation and trade. Yet, full excavation remains limited, constrained by modern development, shifting rivers, and the immense scale of the region. Each small discovery provokes more questions than it answers. Could this sister city have rivaled Harappa in size and complexity? Was it a center of governance, commerce, or religion? Or was it a peripheral yet essential component of a network of settlements that sustained one of the world's earliest urban civilizations? Speculation also extends to the possible reasons for its disappearance. The Indus cities were remarkably uniform, yet there is evidence that localized environmental or societal pressures could have led to selective abandonment. Was the sister city particularly vulnerable to riverine changes, such as the drying of the Gagar Hakra, which some scholars associate with the legendary Sarasvati River? Could floods or seismic activity have caused irreversible damage, prompting inhabitants to relocate? Or might there have been more subtle, human-driven causes, a shift in trade routes, political upheaval, or the gradual assimilation into neighboring settlements that left little trace of their presence? The answers remain elusive, tantalizing researchers with the possibility of revelations that could reshape our understanding of the Indus Valley civilization. Beyond empirical data, the sister city exists in a realm of intellectual and cultural fascination. Its very elusiveness captures the imagination, bridging the gap between known history and speculative inquiry. Unlike cities destroyed by conquest or fire, this settlement seems to have slipped quietly into obscurity, leaving behind structures buried in sediment, artifacts scattered across fields, and stories encoded in the subtle imprint of the land. It challenges us to consider the limits of historical reconstruction. How much can we truly know about a city without the full archaeological record? How do we interpret absence, spaces of silence in the landscape where human lives once unfolded? Even the layout of the suspected site raises questions. Some areas suggest administrative or religious functions, while others appear residential, with clusters of buildings arranged according to principles of order and symmetry reminiscent of Harappa. The organization hints at centralized planning and social cohesion, yet the scale and function of certain complexes remain obscure. Could we find evidence of early governance or bureaucracy, or of cultural practices that have vanished entirely? Might there be hidden archives, clay tablets, inscriptions, or symbolic art that would illuminate the daily life, beliefs, or decisions that guided this city? And if so, what would these discoveries reveal about the broader civilization that once spanned hundreds of kilometers along the Indus and its tributaries? There is also a haunting sense of continuity and loss. The sister city, like Harappa itself, was once part of a thriving network of urban settlements, each connected by commerce, culture, and communication. Yet the remnants we uncover are fragmented, scattered, and often contradictory. Some artifacts show continuity with later South Asian cultures, suggesting that while the city vanished physically, its influence persisted in intangible ways. Others suggest sudden abandonment, hinting at abrupt crises whose nature may never be fully known. The interplay of evidence and absence, clarity and mystery, forms the essence of the city's enigmatic presence. Standing on the plains where this sister city may have risen, one cannot help but sense the weight of history pressing down through the soil. The landscape itself, shaped by rivers that have changed course and floods that have scoured the earth, guards its secrets with quiet persistence. And so the questions remain. What truly lay at the heart of this lost city? How did its people live, organize, and communicate? And what traces of their knowledge, art, and governance might still lie hidden, waiting for discovery beneath the shifting layers of time? The story of Harappa's sister city reminds us that history is not a simple ledger of events, but a layered tapestry of evidence, memory, and imagination. Even as we uncover walls, pottery, and streets, the city continues to exist in the spaces between, in the unanswered questions and the tantalizing possibilities. Its silence is as compelling as its artifacts, inviting us to look closer, to think deeper, and to imagine the lives of those who walked these streets millennia ago. From the rugged cliffs of Cornwall to the windswept sands of the Channel Islands, the Atlantic Ocean stretches like an endless veil of silver and blue. Beneath its shifting waves, legends whisper of a land lost to time, a kingdom swallowed by the sea. Lyonesse. Unlike cities that left behind ruins of stone and clay, Lyonesse exists primarily in the imagination and the oral traditions of mariners, chroniclers, and storytellers. Yet the persistence of these stories, passed down for centuries, hints at something more than mere myth, a memory embedded in geography, geology, and the human psyche, waiting to be traced and understood. Standing at the edge of the Cornish coast, with the wind tearing across the cliffs and the surf crashing against hidden rocks, it is easy to imagine the outlines of a city beneath the waves, just beyond perception. Accounts of Lyonesse appear in medieval literature, most famously in Arthurian tales, where it is described as a fertile, prosperous kingdom lying between Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Ships were said to traverse its rivers, towns were connected by roads and canals, and its people were skilled in agriculture, trade, and the arts. Then, suddenly, the land was lost, swallowed by the sea in a single catastrophic flood, leaving only a few islands and reefs to mark its former presence. Mariners who passed these waters reported strange currents, submerged rocks that seemed too regular to be natural, and on calm days, what some claimed were the faint outlines of streets and buildings beneath shallow waters. Could these observations have a basis in reality? Or are they echoes of cultural memory, crystallized into legend over centuries? Geological and archaeological studies provide compelling, though fragmentary, evidence. Research into the Isles of Scilly and the surrounding seabed has revealed submerged stone structures, tidal channels, and soil layers consistent with settlement prior to rising sea levels. Radiocarbon dating suggests that parts of this coastline were habitable until approximately 1,500 to 2,000 years ago, a period consistent with the timeline preserved in legends. Sea level changes, storm surges, and coastal erosion could have erased much of the visible evidence, leaving only hints beneath the waves. Yet the precision with which some submerged formations align raises questions. Are these natural formations shaped by tidal forces, or are they remnants of streets, buildings, and harbor works once part of a thriving civilization? The mystery deepens when one considers the cultural persistence of Lyonesse. For centuries, tales of vanished cities and islands in the Atlantic were told alongside accounts of shipwrecks, strange lights, and ghostly sounds over the waves. Fishermen and sailors described fogs that seemed alive, currents that guided or misled vessels, and echoes of voices over waters that should have been silent. Could these stories be faint memories of human habitation, preserved in oral tradition long after physical structures were lost? Or do they represent archetypal narratives, reflecting a broader human fascination with civilizations lost to natural forces? The interplay of history, geology, and myth creates a landscape where evidence and imagination coexist, each reinforcing the other. Some researchers propose more speculative explanations. Could Lyonesse have been a sophisticated urban settlement, its streets and canals designed to manage water and protect against tidal forces, only to be overwhelmed by catastrophic flooding? Might there have been cultural or technological knowledge lost with its destruction, similar to what we see in other ancient civilizations that vanished suddenly? And what of the patterns visible on the seabed, detected by sonar and underwater survey teams? Could these be the vestiges of a complex society, now submerged beneath centuries of sediment and silt? The further one examines Lyonesse, the more it seems that fact and legend are inseparable, that the mystery itself is part of the city's enduring presence. Beyond physical evidence, Lyonesse carries a philosophical resonance. It is a symbol of fragility, the transience of human achievement in the face of natural forces, and of memory, the persistence of story even when material traces vanish. Like Kitezh, which some believe sank to protect itself, Lyonesse embodies the tension between permanence and disappearance. It is both a historical question and a reflection on human consciousness. What does it mean for a city to vanish completely, leaving no inhabitants, no chronicles, only echoes of streets and marketplaces in stories and songs? How do humans remember what no longer exists, and how much of that memory is shaped by imagination, longing, and the desire to reclaim a lost past? Even the landscape today invites speculation. The shallow waters between Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly hide rocks and sandbanks that may have been fields, roads, or canals. During unusually low tides, fishermen have claimed glimpses of stonework, foundations, and patterns in the sand suggesting deliberate construction. Coastal erosion and storm activity continually reshape the terrain, potentially exposing remnants one year and burying them the next. Could further underwater excavation reveal definitive evidence of Lyonesse, or is the city destined to remain a puzzle, visible only in fragments and suggestions? The sea itself seems to guard the city's secrets, allowing glimpses but never full revelation. The cultural impact of Lyonesse further enhances its enigmatic presence. Arthurian legends situate it as a kingdom of significance, connecting it to the broader narrative of Britain and its mythical past. Artists, writers, and poets have kept the memory alive, portraying it as a land of beauty, abundance, and mystery. Such stories, while mythic in presentation, may preserve kernels of truth, memories of actual places, events, or disasters that were transformed through centuries of storytelling. Could the echoes of Lyonesse in literature and folklore point to a real city lost to rising seas, or do they reflect universal human concerns about mortality, impermanence, and the forces beyond our control? As one contemplates the mist-shrouded waters and jagged coastline, it is difficult not to feel the pull of what might lie beneath. Streets, canals, houses, and markets may rest in silent repose, preserved in layers of sediment awaiting discovery. Or perhaps the city exists only in the liminal space between history and imagination, a reminder that some mysteries cannot be fully unraveled. Lyonesse challenges our assumptions about permanence, memory, and the traces left behind by human endeavor. It asks us to consider not only the cities we can see, but the ones that have vanished, leaving whispers, echoes, and the subtle imprint of lives once lived. Lyonesse, like the lost cities that preceded it in our exploration, invites contemplation, curiosity, and wonder. It stands at the intersection of history, myth, and human imagination, a city whose streets may never be walked again, yet whose presence is felt in the stories that endure, in the patterns of sand and stone beneath the waves, and in the unanswerable questions that continue to stir our minds. What truly lies beneath the waters of the Cornish coast, and what other lost worlds remain hidden, waiting for the patient observer to uncover them? As the waves of the Mediterranean lap gently against the shores of Egypt, there lies a city that for centuries existed only in whispers, in fragmented texts, and in the stories of sailors who traversed the Nile's delta. Heracleion, known to the ancient Greeks as Thonis, was a thriving hub of commerce, culture, and religion, yet by the end of the first millennium BCE, it had disappeared beneath the waters, lost to the world for over a millennium. Today, divers and archaeologists descend into the harbor near Abokir Bay, uncovering statues, temples, and colossal stone inscriptions, each piece telling a story of a city that once commanded the trade routes of the ancient Mediterranean. The very air above the bay seems to hum with echoes of the past, where the surface of the sea both conceals and reveals the traces of human ambition. Heracleon's strategic position at the mouth of the Nile allowed it to control the flow of goods, people, and ideas between Egypt and the wider Mediterranean. It was said to be the first port of entry for ships arriving from Greece, Phoenicia, and the Levant, and historical texts recount its bustling harbors filled with vessels carrying grain, gold, papyrus, and exotic goods. Temples dedicated to Amun and other deities rose along its canals, while markets overflowed with merchants and traders negotiating deals that spanned continents. In its time, Heracleion rivaled Alexandria in influence, yet it vanished in a way that few cities do, not destroyed by invaders or fire, but swallowed by water, leaving only tantalizing fragments for future generations to discover. The rediscovery of Heracleion is a story in itself. In the late 20th century, underwater archaeologists began surveying the shifting sands and silty waters of Abukir Bay. What they found was staggering. Colossal statues lying half-buried in mud, temple foundations encrusted with coral, and inscriptions remarkably well preserved despite centuries underwater. The scale of the city suggested a metropolis of immense importance, one whose sudden disappearance was as dramatic as it was mysterious. How could a city so powerful, so central to Mediterranean trade and Egyptian politics, vanish so completely from the historical record? And yet, even today, much of it remains unexplored, hidden beneath layers of sediment and the shifting currents of the delta. Historical and geological studies offer some explanations. The Nile Delta is a dynamic environment, subject to rising sea levels, earthquakes, and gradual subsidence. Heracleion, built on marshy land with foundations of wood and stone, may have been particularly vulnerable to these natural forces. Flooding could have undermined structures, and seismic events may have triggered catastrophic collapses. Inscriptions and ancient texts hint at shrines collapsing into canals, and chronicles speak of ports suddenly submerged. Yet the speed and completeness of the city's disappearance invite questions beyond the strictly geological. Could human factors have contributed? Was there a mass evacuation, an economic collapse, or political turmoil that left the city defenseless against nature's encroachment? The artifacts recovered from the bay deepen the intrigue. Giant statues of pharaohs and gods lie on the seabed, some reaching over 5 meters in height, their faces remarkably intact despite centuries underwater. Stone stelae record decrees, religious rites, and the lives of officials, suggesting a city of great sophistication and organization. Coinage, ceramics, and everyday tools provide evidence of a vibrant urban population engaged in both local industry and international trade. Yet there are anomalies. Some statues seem deliberately toppled, some temples appear partially dismantled, and certain inscriptions are missing or illegible. Were these signs of conflict before the submersion, ritual acts, or simply the result of centuries underwater? The answers remain elusive, leaving room for speculation and wonder. Heracleion also challenges our understanding of memory and time. For centuries, the city existed only in the texts of ancient historians and geographers, such as Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus, whose descriptions blended observation with interpretation. Sailors' tales of submerged columns visible at low tide and ghostly lights over the bay fed the legend, yet no tangible evidence could be confirmed. In this sense, Heracleion embodies a liminal state, both real and legendary, physical and ephemeral. Its rediscovery bridges that gap, providing the material record while preserving the sense of mystery that has surrounded it for millennia. Even the environment itself plays a role in shaping our perception. Abukir Bay is not a calm or static place. Currents shift, sediments move, and storms can expose or conceal structures within days. Divers report seeing outlines of streets and quays through water so murky that one cannot always distinguish detail from suggestion. Is this city truly preserved as it once was, or is it reconstructed in the mind, shaped by glimpses, shadows, and the imagination? The relationship between what is seen and what is remembered becomes as important as the physical evidence itself, and Heracleion's story occupies that delicate space between fact and perception. There is also a cultural and symbolic resonance to Heracleion's submersion. In a land defined by the life-giving river, a city swallowed by water takes on a poetic, almost metaphysical dimension. Water, both sustainer and destroyer, preserves and conceals, protecting the city from human interference while erasing its presence from the land. Heracleion invites reflection on the fragility of human enterprise, the interplay between civilization and environment, and the ways in which natural forces can render even the greatest cities impermanent. How many other urban centers have been claimed by water, their streets and temples lost to time, waiting silently beneath waves for rediscovery? Standing above the bay, with sunlight refracting off the waves and the muffled shapes of ruins below, one cannot help but ponder what remains undiscovered. How much of the city lies beyond reach, buried under meters of sediment, corals, and silt? Could there be entire complexes, ritual spaces, or archives yet untouched, waiting to reveal the daily life, governance, and culture of a metropolis lost to time? The unanswered questions hang in the water, as tangible as the artifacts and as elusive as the currents themselves. Heracleion, like the lost cities we have explored before, invites both study and contemplation. It is a reminder that history is never static, that civilization can flourish, endure, and vanish in ways both expected and inexplicable. Its story challenges archaeologists, historians, and the curious alike to look beyond what is visible, to imagine what might have been, and to accept that some mysteries endure even as others are illuminated. Beneath the calm surface of Abukir Bay lies not only stone and coral, but centuries of questions, waiting to be explored, waiting to be understood, or perhaps to remain forever just out of reach. Deep within the dense, uncharted rainforests of southeastern Peru, where the Amazon's verdant canopy stretches endlessly and rivers wind like serpents through the emerald expanse, there exists a legend that has captivated explorers for centuries. Paititi. Unlike cities whose ruins have been excavated and documented, Paititi remains largely invisible to modern eyes, a place whispered about in indigenous oral traditions, chronicled in the fragmented notes of conquistadors, and pursued relentlessly by treasure hunters and archaeologists alike. Standing at the edge of the jungle, with the humid air thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming orchids, one can almost sense the weight of centuries pressing through the foliage. The forest itself seems alive, guarding secrets buried beneath its dense undergrowth, where sunlight barely reaches the forest floor. Accounts of Paititi describe a city of extraordinary wealth and sophistication, hidden deep within the Andes and Amazonian lowlands. According to legends passed down through Quechua and other native peoples, the city was a bastion of the Inca Empire, a refuge built to protect treasures, sacred artifacts, and the knowledge of a civilization under siege. Gold and silver, the stories say, were stored in massive quantities, carefully hidden from the eyes of Spanish invaders who swept through the region in the 16th century. Yet, beyond material wealth, Paititi is said to have been a center of spiritual and cultural significance, with temples, plazas, and ceremonial spaces arranged in harmony with the surrounding mountains and rivers. It is a vision of a city designed not only for human habitation, but as a sacred reflection of the Inca worldview. Historical and archival evidence offers tantalizing glimpses of the city's possible reality. Spanish chronicles occasionally reference expeditions into the jungle, commissioned to locate a lost city overflowing with riches. Reports from missionaries, soldiers, and explorers hint at encounters with smaller settlements, signs of roads cut through the forest, and hints of defensive fortifications. Some maps, though vague and inconsistent, mark locations that may correspond to Paititi or its surrounding region. Yet these records are fragmentary, often contradictory, and interpreted differently depending on the observer. The very elusiveness of Paititi seems intentional, as if the city itself were designed to evade discovery, hidden by both geography and careful secrecy. The Amazon and Andean terrain present formidable challenges that may account for the city's disappearance from the record. Rivers flood unpredictably, shifting the landscape, while the dense jungle rapidly reclaims abandoned areas, covering them with vines, moss, and towering trees. The steep slopes of the Andes, coupled with deep valleys and remote plateaus, create natural barriers to exploration. Any settlement, even one as substantial as Paititi is described, could be concealed completely by environmental forces over the course of centuries. Could this alone explain the city's absence from modern maps? Or does the jungle protect a deliberately hidden civilization, waiting for those who know where and how to look? The artifacts and clues that have been uncovered suggest a complex and organized society. Remnants of stone walls, terraces, and agricultural structures, some partially excavated or discovered by aerial surveys, hint at a city capable of sustaining a substantial population. Patterns of roads and trails through the jungle suggest trade and communication, linking smaller settlements into a network that may have extended across vast distances. Scholars debate whether these finds represent Paititi itself or ancillary communities, but the consistency of evidence with Inca architectural and engineering practices lends credibility to the notion of a sophisticated urban center concealed by the forest. Could Paititi have been a city of hundreds or thousands, thriving beyond the reach of colonial conquest, or does the legend amplify a more modest reality? Speculative theories add further layers of intrigue. Some suggest that Paititi functioned as a final refuge for the Inca elite, preserving sacred objects and archives that otherwise might have been lost to colonial plunder. Others propose that it was a ceremonial city, designed to mirror cosmological principles, with plazas, temples, and avenues aligned to stars, rivers, or mountain peaks. And then there are more fringe theories, inspired by tantalizing accounts of gold, tunnels, and underground chambers, suggesting that the city may extend far beneath the surface of the forest itself. While concrete evidence remains elusive, these stories shape the imagination, highlighting the interplay of history, legend, and the human desire to uncover what has been deliberately concealed. Paititi's persistence in cultural memory underscores its significance. Indigenous oral traditions continue to describe a city of abundance and sanctity, emphasizing not only material wealth but moral and spiritual dimensions. The narrative of a hidden city resonates across generations, reminding us that human history is not only a record of what has survived physically, but also of what communities choose to remember and protect. In this sense, Paititi exists simultaneously in the world of matter and the realm of consciousness, where stories, beliefs, and dreams preserve its presence even when walls and streets remain hidden. Even the environment itself acts as a guardian. The dense forest, thick undergrowth, and challenging terrain have preserved the city by obscuring it, making accidental discovery unlikely. Only careful, patient observation, through aerial imagery, satellite mapping, and meticulous ground surveys, offers a chance of piecing together the city's possible location. Each expedition into the jungle brings tantalizing clues, fragments of structures or traces of roads, yet no definitive confirmation. Could it be that the city is vast, deliberately fragmented, or partially destroyed by natural forces? Or is it a city whose essence is meant to remain a secret, revealing itself only to those prepared to navigate the dense tangle of history and forest? The allure of Paititi lies not just in the promise of gold or treasures, but in the challenge it presents to our understanding of lost civilizations. It asks us to consider the fragility and resilience of human endeavor, how a city can flourish in relative isolation, adapt to formidable environmental conditions, and yet remain beyond reach for centuries. It reminds us that the past is layered, complex, and often hidden, with truths awaiting discovery, or perhaps always partially concealed. As one stands on a riverbank or a mountaintop, gazing into the endless expanse of green, it is easy to imagine the city stretching out beyond view, its temples and plazas alive with movement and ritual. The mystery of Paititi endures, inviting curiosity, reflection, and a deep respect for the forces, both human and natural, that shape the preservation of history. What remains hidden beneath the canopy, and what other secrets might the jungle guard, waiting for those patient enough to uncover them? Along the northern coast of the Peloponnesus, where the Corinthian Gulf reflects the shifting skies and the gentle waves lap against sandy shores, there once existed a city celebrated for its wealth, devotion, and cultural vibrancy: Helike. For centuries, it was renowned as a thriving Greek polis, rivaling even the more famous centers of the region in influence and prosperity. Yet, in a single night in 373 BCE, the city vanished, swallowed by the earth and the sea, leaving behind only myths, fragmented accounts, and tantalizing traces. Today, the coastline and surrounding wetlands bear little resemblance to the bustling city described in ancient chronicles. Yet, archaeologists and geologists have discovered enough to suggest that beneath the modern landscape, Helike's foundations may still lie hidden, preserved by layers of silt and sediment, whispering secrets of a civilization lost in both space and time. Ancient sources describe Helike as a city of remarkable architectural sophistication, with temples, agorae, and residential quarters arranged in an orderly grid. Its wealth was legendary, derived from fertile land, access to trade routes, and devotion to the worship of Poseidon, the god of the sea and earthquakes. Festivals and religious ceremonies filled the streets, creating a vibrant civic life. But, as Plato and other chroniclers would note, the city's prosperity could not shield it from the unpredictable forces of nature. According to historical accounts, an earthquake struck abruptly, destabilizing the ground beneath Helike. The earth itself seemed to rupture, and tidal surges from the Gulf inundated the city, drowning temples, houses, and marketplaces in brackish waters. The destruction was swift and total, leaving only a few survivors and a legacy preserved in oral tradition and literary record. Modern investigations into Helike's disappearance have revealed a fascinating interplay of geology and archaeology. Subsurface surveys, boreholes, and sediment analysis indicate that the Corinthian Gulf has shifted over millennia, and that soil liquefaction, whereby water-saturated earth behaves like a fluid during seismic activity, may have caused large portions of the city to sink. Columns, stone blocks, and remnants of walls recovered from marshy areas support the notion of sudden submersion rather than gradual abandonment. Yet, questions remain. How much of the city has been preserved beneath layers of silt, and how might further excavation reveal the intricacies of urban planning, daily life, and religious practices that once defined Helike? The evidence suggests that this was no small settlement. It was a city with cultural and strategic significance, its sudden loss leaving a gap in our understanding of classical Greek urbanism. The mystery of Helike is compounded by the blending of historical fact and legend. Ancient writers tell of the city as cursed, punished by Poseidon for unknown transgressions, a moral tale intertwined with geological reality. This fusion of narrative and natural disaster invites reflection. How did the people of the time interpret cataclysmic events? Were stories of divine retribution a way to comprehend a tragedy beyond human control? Or did they serve to preserve the memory of a city whose physical traces were rapidly erased? As with many lost cities, the interplay of myth and evidence complicates our understanding, requiring careful navigation between literary sources and material remains. Archaeological discoveries over the past century have brought fragments of Helike back into the realm of tangible history. Excavations in the floodplain north of the Gulf have uncovered foundations, stone pavements, and inscribed artifacts suggesting that temples dedicated to Poseidon and other deities once stood prominently within the city. Pottery, coins, and jewelry recovered from the sediments offer glimpses into the daily lives of citizens, revealing trade connections, domestic habits, and social organization. Yet the city's full scope remains elusive. Much of it may lie buried beneath several meters of sediment, distorted by centuries of flooding and shifting soils. The challenge for archaeologists is not only to locate these remains, but to reconstruct a city that exists simultaneously in the material record, historical memory, and mythic imagination. There are also anomalies that provoke further intrigue. Some accounts describe faint tremors and unusual tidal behavior in the Corinthian Gulf that continued for years after the earthquake, suggesting a lingering instability in the landscape. Could these geological phenomena have contributed to the city's complete submersion? Were there earlier warning signs ignored or misinterpreted by Helike's inhabitants? And what of the cultural memory preserved in the region? Local legends of sunken streets, vanished temples, and spirits wandering the marshes hint at a collective memory of catastrophe that persists long after the physical structures were lost. These layers of narrative, observation, and speculation create a rich tapestry where history and legend intertwine seamlessly. Helike also invites reflection on the vulnerability of human settlements in the face of natural forces. Here was a city, advanced and prosperous, yet unable to withstand the power of seismic activity and coastal inundation. It serves as a reminder that civilizations, no matter how sophisticated, are subject to the whims of the environment, and that the disappearance of cities is not always the result of war, conquest, or human failure. Natural catastrophes, as much as human action, shape the historical record, leaving mysteries that challenge archaeologists, historians, and the curious alike. Standing on the modern coastline, with marshlands stretching into the distance and the Gulf shimmering under the afternoon sun, one can almost imagine Helike as it once was, streets lined with stone, temples rising in ceremonial grandeur, the hum of civic life, and the laughter and bustle of markets. And yet, beneath the earth and silt, the city lies hidden, partially preserved, its full story obscured by time, nature, and human memory. It is a city that exists simultaneously in history, archaeology, and legend, reminding us of both the resilience and fragility of human achievement. The mystery of Helike endures because, despite centuries of research, the city has never been fully recovered or understood. What more might lie beneath the marshes? How extensive was the city, and what insights could its ruins provide about Greek urban planning, religious practice, and social organization? How did the inhabitants respond in the moments before the ground gave way beneath their feet? And what traces of their lives remain buried, awaiting discovery? The questions linger like the gentle swell of the Corinthian Gulf, inviting exploration, contemplation, and wonder. Off the southern coast of Laconia, Greece, where the Aegean Sea glimmers under the sun and gentle waves lap against quiet shores, lies one of the oldest submerged cities in the world, Pavlopetri. Unlike cities lost to legend or text alone, Pavlopetri rests beneath shallow waters, its streets, buildings, and tombs preserved remarkably intact, as if time itself had paused. The city is partially visible on exceptionally clear days, its geometric layout traced faintly beneath the turquoise waves, a reminder of an urban sophistication that existed over 5,000 years ago. To gaze upon Pavlopetri from a small boat or through the lens of an underwater camera is to confront a paradox. A city simultaneously vanished and present, alive in the patterns of stone and submerged architecture, yet silent in the stories of its inhabitants. Pavlopetri dates back to the early Bronze Age, around 2800 BCE, making it a contemporary of the earliest civilizations of Crete and mainland Greece. Archaeologists have identified streets, houses, courtyards, and tombs arranged with surprising order and precision. The city's layout reflects careful urban planning, with buildings oriented to maximize sunlight, narrow streets designed for foot traffic, and evidence of drainage systems suggesting advanced engineering knowledge. Pottery, tools, and other artifacts recovered from the site indicate active trade networks with neighboring islands and settlements, hinting at a culture that thrived in commerce, craftsmanship, and community life. And yet, by some unknown calamity, Pavlopetri vanished beneath the waves, leaving only the seabed as its memorial. The precise cause of Pavlopetri's submersion remains the subject of investigation and speculation. Geological studies indicate that tectonic activity, earthquakes, and gradual sea level rise could have contributed to the city's descent beneath the waves. The southern Greek coast is historically seismically active, and it is plausible that an earthquake could have caused the land to sink, while storm surges and coastal erosion accelerated the process. But the exact timeline is uncertain. How quickly did the city disappear? Were there warning signs that prompted inhabitants to flee? Or was the submersion abrupt and catastrophic? The silence of Pavlopetri beneath the water leaves these questions open, tantalizing archaeologists and historians alike. The underwater preservation of Pavlopetri is extraordinary. Because the city sank into relatively shallow and calm waters, much of its layout has remained intact for millennia. Stone foundations, paved courtyards, and even tombs are remarkably well preserved, offering an unparalleled glimpse into Bronze Age urban life. The arrangement of buildings suggests a hierarchy, with certain structures likely serving communal or religious purposes, while others functioned as residences or workshops. Artifacts scattered across the site provide clues to the daily routines of its citizens. Ceramic vessels, grinding stones, fishing implements, and tools hint at a self-sufficient community engaged in trade and subsistence alike. And yet, despite these discoveries, large portions of the city remain unexplored, concealed beneath layers of sand and silt, preserving secrets that may forever elude the surface world. Pavlopetri's discovery in the 1960s, followed by detailed underwater surveys decades later, has fueled both scholarly inquiry and public imagination. The city challenges conventional ideas about ancient urban development, demonstrating that highly organized, long-lasting settlements existed in mainland Greece far earlier than previously assumed. It raises questions about social organization, technology, and cultural practices during the early Bronze Age. How did its inhabitants govern their city? What role did religion, trade, and family structure play in daily life? And perhaps most intriguingly, why did Pavlopetri disappear so completely, leaving no contemporaneous historical record to explain its fate? Speculation extends beyond the purely scientific. Some researchers suggest that Pavlopetri may have been deliberately abandoned in response to environmental changes or threats, leaving traces that would eventually be claimed by the sea. Others consider the possibility of sudden catastrophe, an earthquake or tsunami that left the city submerged almost instantly. The submerged nature of the city invites imagination, prompting questions about what daily life might have looked like and how human resilience and ingenuity were tested against forces beyond their control. The city's quiet persistence beneath the waves underscores the delicate balance between civilization and environment, a theme repeated across lost cities around the world. Cultural significance also amplifies Pavlopetri's mystery. Unlike Helike or Lyonesse, which live largely in stories and literary accounts, Pavlopetri exists as a tangible site, its streets and foundations whispering the details of a long-forgotten community. Yet even in its physicality, much remains unknown. The relationships between structures, the full extent of the city, and the precise organization of public versus private spaces are still subjects of ongoing research. Each dive, each sonar scan, reveals new information while simultaneously highlighting the gaps in our understanding. The city exists in a liminal space, both discovered and undiscovered, known and unknown, tangible and mysterious. Even the environment around Pavlopetri contributes to its enigmatic presence. The shallow waters allow sunlight to penetrate, illuminating stone foundations, yet shifting currents and sediment continually alter what is visible. Storms can expose fragments of walls or roads one season and bury them the next, reinforcing the impermanence of human constructs against natural forces. For divers and archaeologists, the city is both a marvel and a challenge, requiring patience, precision, and respect for the delicate underwater ecosystem that preserves it. Pavlopetri invites reflection on the nature of lost civilizations and the traces they leave behind. It reminds us that even highly organized societies, capable of remarkable engineering and cultural achievements, are vulnerable to environmental change. The city also demonstrates the ways in which human memory, archaeological discovery, and scientific investigation intersect, creating narratives that blend fact, interpretation, and imagination. Its streets, courtyards, and tombs tell a story of urban life long extinguished, yet still present in the echoes of stone and the patterns beneath the water. As one floats above Pavlopetri, gazing through the clear turquoise waters at the geometric outlines of streets, buildings, and courtyards, it is easy to envision life as it once was: children running along paved streets, merchants exchanging goods, families tending gardens, and priests performing rituals in temples of stone. And yet, below, the city remains silent, suspended in time, a reminder that history is not always written on paper but carved into the very earth, or, in this case, the sea. How much of Pavlopetri remains hidden beneath sediment? What insights into human ingenuity and resilience lie buried, waiting for patient eyes and careful hands to uncover them? The city, like many lost cities, offers answers and questions in equal measure, inviting us to explore, to wonder, and to imagine. Far to the north of the Valley of Mexico, shrouded in the mists of legend and history, lies a place that has captivated the imagination of generations: Aztlan. Described in the codices of the Mexica, or Aztec people, as the ancestral homeland from which they migrated to establish Tenochtitlan, Aztlan exists at the boundary between geography and myth, memory and speculation. Its name evokes images of fertile lands, glimmering lakes, and communities thriving with ritual, commerce, and culture. Yet for centuries, scholars and explorers have sought a location for Aztlan in vain. Is it a real place, lost to the march of time and shifting landscapes, or a symbolic construct, a cultural North Star guiding the migrations and identity of a people? Accounts of Aztlan appear across a spectrum of Mesoamerican sources. Codices describe it as an island paradise, abundant in food, rich in precious stones, and populated by people skilled in agriculture, art, and religious observance. Its inhabitants lived in harmony with the land, developing intricate social structures and religious practices that would later be reflected in the ceremonial life of the Mexica. Yet Aztlan was not permanent. According to legend, over time the people were compelled to leave, embarking on a journey southward, guided by divine omens and prophecies, eventually founding the great city of Tenochtitlan on an island in Lake Texcoco. The story intertwines spiritual purpose with historical migration, leaving a tantalizing question. Where, geographically, did Aztlan lie? Scholars have proposed numerous possibilities. Some suggest it may have been located in northern Mexico, in regions corresponding to modern-day Nayarit, Sinaloa, or the southwestern United States, where oral traditions hint at settlements along rivers and lakes. Archaeological evidence of early Mexica or related groups in these areas provides tantalizing, though inconclusive, clues. Ceramics, stone tools, and traces of early villages suggest human habitation consistent with the time frames described in legend. Yet no definitive site has been identified as Aztlan. Could environmental changes, rising waters, shifting rivers, or climatic shifts have erased the physical traces of the city? Or might the legend encode a journey through multiple settlements, with Aztlan serving more as an idealized homeland than a single physical location? The symbolic aspects of Aztlan are equally compelling. For the Mexica, Aztlan represented not only origin, but identity, a shared memory that unified disparate clans and guided their migrations. Its depiction as an island paradise resonates with universal themes of lost homelands, sacred origins, and the human longing for a perfect beginning. Some anthropologists suggest that Aztlan may be a mythologized memory of a real migratory path or cluster of settlements, later transformed into a narrative that explained culture, authority, and legitimacy. The interplay between history and legend complicates the search. Can one hope to locate a place that may exist as much in collective memory as in the physical landscape? Yet Aztlan is not entirely intangible. Oral traditions, codices, and colonial-era writings provide fragments of information about its culture, society, and topography. Scholars note consistent references to lakes, islands, and fertile land, suggesting that its location was intimately tied to water sources and agricultural potential. The importance of water, both practical and symbolic, mirrors practices seen later in Tenochtitlan, where canals, chinampas, and religious rites were central to urban and spiritual life. Could these consistencies point to a specific region in northern Mesoamerica, now altered by centuries of natural and human-driven transformation, leaving only memory behind? The speculation extends into more controversial theories. Some researchers propose that Aztlan was partially or wholly submerged, perhaps by tectonic activity, river flooding, or lake expansion, obscuring evidence of settlement. Others suggest that its disappearance was a gradual cultural absorption, with communities migrating, merging, and transforming, leaving few archaeological traces distinguishable from later sites. Fringe interpretations suggest that Aztlan's story encodes advanced knowledge, ritualistic significance, or even forgotten technologies, though these remain speculative. What is clear is that Aztlan embodies a tension between what is known, what is imagined, and what remains just out of reach, a tension that has kept explorers, historians, and dreamers searching for centuries. Cultural memory keeps Aztlan alive even in the absence of concrete evidence. Among the Mexica and their descendants, references to Aztlan are not merely historical but moral and symbolic, representing origins, migration, and the fulfillment of prophecy. Festivals, songs, and oral narratives preserve its presence in the collective imagination, connecting generations to a shared sense of place and purpose. This cultural persistence highlights an important aspect of lost cities. Even when material evidence is scarce, the stories people tell ensure that the city lives on in memory, shaping identity, ritual, and imagination. The geography itself adds to the mystery. Northern Mexico and the American Southwest are regions of deserts, rivers, and lakes that have shifted dramatically over millennia. Riverbeds change, lakes dry or expand, and human activity alters landscapes, making the task of locating an ancient city all the more difficult. Satellite imaging, remote sensing, and archaeological surveys have yielded potential sites, but none can yet be confirmed as Aztlan. How much might lie hidden beneath desert sands or silted riverbeds? What traces of habitation, ritual, or artistry await discovery, lying just beyond modern perception? Aztlan's allure lies not in its certainty, but in the questions it provokes. It embodies a search for origin, a yearning to connect with the past, and the human desire to understand where we come from and how civilizations evolve. It challenges researchers to navigate the boundary between legend and archaeology, to explore landscapes that may have shifted or disappeared entirely, and to respect the intangible memory preserved through culture and story. Could Aztlan be found in the physical world, or does it exist primarily in the realm of imagination, guiding understanding and identity rather than mapping onto a single location? Standing at the edge of a lake, river, or desert plateau, one can imagine the people of Aztlan living in harmony with their environment, cultivating land, honoring deities, and preparing for a journey that would shape the course of history. The city may remain hidden, yet it persists in the echoes of codices, the songs of descendants, and the enduring human fascination with lost homelands. What lies beyond the traces we have uncovered, and what secrets remain buried, waiting for the patient and perceptive to discover them? Perched on the rugged hills of central Anatolia, near the modern town of Boğazkale in Turkey, lie the ruins of a city that once radiated power, influence, and mystery, Hattusa. Encircled by massive stone walls, punctuated by monumental gates and watchtowers, the city was the political and spiritual heart of the Hittite Empire, one of the ancient world's most formidable civilizations. Today, visitors walk among crumbling temples, royal residences, and fortified streets, tracing paths where kings, priests, and citizens once moved in a rhythm of ritual, governance, and daily life. Yet, despite centuries of excavation, Hattusa retains an air of enigma, an ancient city that thrived, vanished, and left behind questions as enduring as its stone foundations. Hattusa's strategic location atop a plateau offered both defense and visibility, overseeing valleys that connected Anatolia to Mesopotamia, the Aegean, and beyond. In its prime, the city stretched across 1,500 hectares, with concentric walls defining districts for royalty, temples, and commoners. Within these walls, temples dedicated to storm gods and solar deities rose alongside administrative buildings, their interiors once adorned with murals, inscriptions, and ritual artifacts. The city's sophistication is evident in the organization of its streets, drainage systems, and the monumental Lion Gate, whose carved figures exude both artistic mastery and spiritual significance. Hattusa was a city designed for endurance, yet centuries later it would be abandoned, leaving only ruins to tell its story. The historical record provides some insight into the city's rise and fall. Hattusa became the Hittite capital around 1650 BCE, consolidating power over a region that was a crossroads of cultures, languages, and trade. The Hittites developed a complex legal system, diplomacy that rivaled Egypt's, and a network of vassal states that extended influence across Anatolia and into the Levant. Clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform, discovered in the city's archives, reveal treaties, royal decrees, and accounts of military campaigns, offering a window into a civilization both literate and bureaucratically sophisticated. Yet, despite these records, Hattusa ultimately fell into decline, abandoned by the 12th century BCE, leaving archaeologists to ponder why such a powerful and well-planned city could be deserted. The reasons behind Hattusa's abandonment remain a matter of speculation and scholarly debate. Some suggest environmental factors, drought, famine, or resource depletion, may have undermined the city's viability. Others point to political instability or invasions that disrupted trade and governance. There is evidence of destruction in some parts of the city, though it is not uniform, suggesting that abandonment may have been gradual, punctuated by crises. Could the city have faced internal strife or the erosion of central authority, leaving residents to disperse to safer or more prosperous areas? Or did a combination of ecological stress and human miscalculation render Hattusa untenable, forcing its citizens to leave behind temples, palaces, and administrative centers that had once symbolized their dominance? The archaeological record offers further intrigue. Excavations have revealed the remains of massive walls, the foundations of grand palaces, and the intricate layout of a city built to withstand both natural and human threats. Yet there are anomalies. Some inscriptions hint at unexplained rituals, mysterious treaties, or sudden political decisions whose motives are unclear. Certain districts appear to have been intentionally dismantled or left incomplete, provoking questions about the city's internal dynamics. Scholars have also noted peculiar alignments of temples and gates, suggesting possible astronomical or ritual significance, although the full meaning remains elusive. How much of Hattusa's design reflected practical governance, and how much encoded spiritual or symbolic messages lost to time? Hattusa's role as a spiritual center adds to its mystique. Temples dedicated to storm gods, sun deities, and chthonic spirits indicate a society deeply attuned to the cycles of nature and the unseen forces believed to govern human fate. The discovery of ritual artifacts, from altars to figurines, implies that the city was not only a seat of political power but also a hub of religious activity, where ceremonies reinforced social cohesion and cosmic order. The interplay between religion, politics, and urban design in Hattusa reflects a civilization that sought harmony between the practical and the divine, yet it also raises questions. How did the spiritual life of the city influence decisions during periods of crisis, and might religious or cultural practices have shaped the city's eventual abandonment? The surrounding landscape itself complicates understanding. Central Anatolia is prone to earthquakes, with geological studies indicating that seismic activity may have affected Hattusa over centuries. Could natural disasters have contributed to structural damage, population decline, or the gradual desertion of key districts? Rivers that once supplied water and enabled agriculture may have shifted course, impacting sustainability. And yet, despite these environmental challenges, Hattusa's massive walls and carefully constructed infrastructure demonstrate an extraordinary resilience, emphasizing that the city's disappearance was likely the result of complex, interwoven factors rather than a single cataclysm. Even today, Hattusa occupies a liminal space between discovery and mystery. Tourists walk among stone streets and gates, and archaeologists continue to uncover fragments of its past, yet much remains unknown. The full extent of the city, the daily rhythms of its citizens, the secrets contained in its archives, and the rituals conducted in its temples continue to elude full understanding. Hattusa, like many lost cities, exists in multiple dimensions: a physical ruin, a historical narrative, and a repository of unanswered questions. It challenges modern observers to reconstruct lives, societies, and decisions long vanished, while confronting the limitations of our knowledge. Standing atop the plateau, overlooking valleys that once carried trade, armies, and travelers, one can almost imagine Hattusa as it was, bustling with citizens, priests, and rulers, alive with the sounds of commerce, devotion, and debate, resilient in its stone fortifications, yet vulnerable to the forces of nature and history. And yet, beneath the ruins lie traces of unanswered questions, rituals, decisions, and events that shaped its rise and fall. How much remains hidden, waiting to be uncovered? What can Hattusa teach us about the impermanence of human achievement, the interplay between nature and civilization, and the mysteries that endure long after a city has been abandoned? High upon the rolling hills of southeastern Zimbabwe, amidst granite outcrops that catch the golden African sun, lie the enigmatic remains of a city that once stood as a symbol of power, wealth, and architectural mastery. Great Zimbabwe. While the main city has long been studied and celebrated, whispers of a lesser-known twin site, situated nearby in relative obscurity, beckon archaeologists and historians alike. This so-called twin site, smaller yet intricately structured, offers tantalizing hints of a sprawling civilization whose reach and influence may have extended far beyond what the ruins alone suggest. Standing among its scattered stone walls, one senses a civilization that was both deliberate and mysterious, leaving behind patterns that speak of organization, ritual, and purpose, yet revealing little of its ultimate fate. The twin site mirrors many features of the central Great Zimbabwe complex: dry stone walls, circular enclosures, and terraces carved into the hillside, all constructed without mortar, yet enduring centuries of erosion. Its layout suggests careful planning, with areas likely designated for habitation, ceremonies, and perhaps administrative functions. Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of pottery, iron tools, and beads, hinting at a society skilled in metallurgy, agriculture, and trade. Yet, the full extent of the site is unknown, hidden in the undulating terrain and thick vegetation that cover much of the surrounding hills. How extensive was this twin city, and how did it relate to the larger urban center? Was it a satellite settlement, a sacred precinct, or a refuge in times of political or environmental stress? Historical and oral sources offer tantalizing clues. The Shona people, descendants of the builders of Great Zimbabwe, tell stories of multiple cities and sacred spaces, of kings and religious leaders who moved between settlements, and of territories linked by trade and ritual networks. These accounts suggest that the twin site was not an isolated outpost, but part of a larger socio-political landscape, integrated with trade routes, ceremonial pathways, and possibly even astronomical observatories. Some scholars speculate that it may have served a specialized function, perhaps as a religious center, a royal retreat, or a hub for the processing and storage of gold, which fueled the economic power of the region. Yet, without detailed excavation, the true purpose remains speculative, leaving questions that echo across centuries. The mystery deepens when considering the twin site's disappearance from the historical record. While Great Zimbabwe itself fell into decline around the 15th century, likely due to a combination of political upheaval, resource depletion, and shifting trade networks, the fate of the twin site is less clear. Was it abandoned simultaneously with the central city, or did it outlast it for some period? Could environmental changes, droughts, soil degradation, or shifting rivers have forced its population to disperse? And what role did human decision-making, social dynamics, or ritual imperatives play in its desertion? The answers remain buried, intertwined with the earth and memory of the land. Archaeological surveys provide a partial glimpse into its sophistication. Stone enclosures suggest an understanding of defensive architecture, while terraces and retaining walls indicate advanced agricultural practices adapted to hilly terrain. Excavations have revealed the use of locally sourced granite, carefully shaped and placed, reflecting both technical skill and aesthetic sensibility. The precision and endurance of the constructions speak to a culture that valued permanence, symbolism, and social organization. Yet, anomalies persist. Some walls seem disproportionately large for the spaces they enclose. Certain enclosures remain unexplored, and the absence of clear administrative centers leaves open the question of governance. Could these features hint at ritual significance, or do they reflect a social order now invisible to modern eyes? trade and material culture further complicate the narrative. Artifacts found at the twin site include beads, ceramics, and metal objects, suggesting links with the wider Indian Ocean trade network, stretching from the Swahili coast to Persia and India. This indicates that the site was not an isolated hilltop settlement, but part of a broader economic and cultural system. How did its residents participate in long-distance trade while maintaining local agricultural and artisanal production? Did the twin site serve as a specialized node in this network, perhaps storing, processing, or overseeing resources critical to the wealth of the kingdom? The fragments recovered offer clues, but the absence of extensive written records leaves these questions tantalizingly open. The twin site's relative obscurity also invites speculation. Unlike the main city, which attracted early European explorers and scholars, the satellite location was largely overlooked for centuries, hidden in rugged terrain and dense vegetation. Could this concealment have been intentional, designed to protect sacred spaces, treasure, or strategic assets? Or was it a consequence of geography and the passage of time, leaving its secrets preserved by inaccessibility? The silence of the site challenges investigators, urging patience, careful observation, and a deep respect for the environment that both conceals and preserves it. Cultural memory and oral tradition preserve the twin site in ways that archaeology cannot fully capture. Local communities recall stories of kings, ancestors, and sacred rituals, suggesting that the site played a role in spiritual and social life that transcended mere habitation. These narratives highlight the interplay between physical ruins and intangible heritage, reminding us that lost cities are not only spaces of stone and earth, but also vessels of memory, identity, and imagination. The twin site exists as both a physical reality and a symbol, bridging past and present, archaeology and legend. Standing among its weathered stone walls, one can imagine the twin site in its heyday. Children playing in courtyards, artisans shaping beads and metal, priests performing ceremonies, and leaders overseeing the rhythms of governance and trade. The city, though smaller than the main complex, exudes a quiet sophistication, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. And yet, the twin site remains largely unexplored, its full story hidden beneath centuries of vegetation and sediment, a silent witness to a civilization whose grandeur has largely vanished from view. The mystery of Great Zimbabwe's twin site endures because, like many lost cities, it challenges assumptions about continuity, decline, and the impermanence of human achievement. What more lies hidden among the granite hills? How did this city interact with the larger urban center, and what can it reveal about social structure, religion, and economy? The questions linger in the quiet hills, inviting exploration, reflection, and the hope that patient study might one day illuminate the secrets of this extraordinary, yet largely forgotten city. Nestled within the fertile Nile Delta, where the river splits into a labyrinth of waterways and channels, lies the city of Tanis, a place whose ruins whisper stories of grandeur, mystery, and sudden disappearance. Today, Tanis is an archaeological site of sand, stone, and scattered columns, yet beneath its surface lies the memory of a city that once rivaled Thebes in wealth and influence. Unlike other lost cities, Tanis was not buried by a cataclysmic disaster, but gradually submerged by shifting rivers, encroaching marshes, and the passage of time, leaving behind a fragmented landscape that challenges archaeologists to reconstruct its full story. Walking among its ruins, one senses both the sophistication of ancient Egyptian urban planning and the fragility of human endeavor against the inexorable forces of nature. Tanis rose to prominence during the Third Intermediate Period of Egypt, around the 21st to 22nd dynasties, becoming a political and religious capital at a time when the Nile Delta was a center of power, commerce, and culture. The city was strategically positioned on trade routes that connected the Mediterranean to the interior of Egypt, allowing it to prosper economically and culturally. Archaeologists have uncovered royal tombs, temples, and palaces adorned with stonework, hieroglyphs, and inscriptions that speak of kings who ruled with authority and ambition. These structures testify not only to political power, but also to the city's role as a center of religious life, where priesthoods, rituals, and festivals reinforced social cohesion and divine favor. Yet the rise of Tanis is matched by its enigmatic decline. Unlike the spectacular destruction seen in cities like Helike or Pavlopetri, Tanis did not vanish suddenly. It was gradually lost beneath sediment, silt, and rising waters of the Nile Delta. Natural shifts in the river's course isolated portions of the city, while flooding and marsh formation rendered others uninhabitable. Some scholars suggest that changes in political power and the relocation of the priesthood and monarchy to other centers contributed to its decline. How much of Tanis's disappearance was dictated by environmental forces and how much by human decision? The layers of sand and silt preserve clues, yet also obscure the answers, leaving archaeologists to decipher a story written partly by nature itself. The city's archaeology provides both clarity and intrigue. Tanis is notable for its royal necropolis, where tombs of pharaohs and high priests were discovered relatively intact, a rarity in Egypt, offering unparalleled insight into burial practices, wealth, and artistry. Gold, jewelry, and ceremonial objects found within these tombs reveal the city's affluence and its role in maintaining Egypt's spiritual and political continuity. Yet other areas of Tanis remain enigmatic. The foundations of temples and residential quarters hint at complex social organization, while inscriptions and stelae pose questions about the lives, conflicts, and achievements of the inhabitants. Were these structures part of a centralized, meticulously planned city, or did Tanis evolve more organically, responding to shifting political and environmental pressures? The mystery of Tanis is deepened by its repeated rediscovery and reinterpretation. Early explorers mistook parts of the city for ruins of other delta settlements, and only in the 19th and 20th centuries were archaeologists able to map the site systematically. The overlapping construction of successive dynasties, along with the accumulation of silt, created layers of habitation that challenge modern excavation. Could there still be hidden chambers, undiscovered tombs, or forgotten streets lying beneath the delta's soil? What secrets might they hold about Egypt's political maneuverings, religious innovations, or interactions with neighboring civilizations? Environmental factors played a central role in Tanis's obscurity. The dynamic Nile, with its seasonal floods, deltaic sedimentation, and ever-shifting channels, both nourished the city and ultimately contributed to its concealment. Over centuries, buildings became partially submerged, streets disappeared beneath layers of silt, and temples that once resonated with the chants of priests now lie silent. The interplay of human settlement and natural forces creates a narrative of fragility and resilience. A city of remarkable achievement, yet one that could not escape the slow but relentless transformation of the landscape around it. Tanis also invites consideration of its symbolic and cultural significance. As a capital and religious center, it maintained continuity with ancient traditions while adapting to new dynasties and political realities. Its monuments, inscriptions, and art reflect a culture deeply concerned with lineage, ritual, and divine favor. Yet the city's very disappearance challenges assumptions about permanence. Even a capital, adorned with wealth and sacred authority, can fade from prominence, leaving behind traces that require patient interpretation. In this sense, Tanis embodies the tension between human aspiration and historical impermanence, a theme that resonates across the spectrum of lost cities. Standing among the partially reconstructed gates, weathered walls, and scattered columns, one can almost imagine Tanis as it once was. Bustling streets filled with merchants, scribes, and citizens. priests performing sacred rites in temples adorned with carvings and offerings, and kings moving with authority through palaces, reinforcing the social and political order. Yet the city's full extent remains elusive, hidden beneath centuries of natural sedimentation and human transformation. How much of its urban landscape lies undiscovered? What stories of daily life, political intrigue, and religious practice remain buried, awaiting patient excavation and interpretation? The allure of Tanis lies in this interplay of discovery and mystery. It is a city tangible enough to inspire awe, yet enigmatic enough to provoke endless questions. Its streets, tombs, and temples tell a story of human ambition and ingenuity, yet also of vulnerability and impermanence. The city exists as both history and puzzle, inviting archaeologists, historians, and curious minds to explore, imagine, and reflect. What more might the Delta conceal? How did the inhabitants of Tanis perceive their city, and how did they respond to the slow encroachment of nature and the shifting currents of political power? Tanis, like many lost cities, reminds us that even the grandest achievements are subject to time, environment, and circumstance. Its mysteries endure, offering not only knowledge but wonder, challenging us to seek understanding while accepting that some answers may remain just out of reach. Across the wide, fertile plains near the confluence of the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers, the remains of Cahokia spread quietly beneath grasses and scattered trees. For centuries, this city was the preeminent center of the Mississippian culture, a hub of trade, ritual, and political authority in what is now North America. Yet, even as modern archaeology has uncovered its central mounds, plazas, and palisades, large sections of Cahokia remain hidden, lost beneath centuries of erosion, agriculture, and urban development. These lost sections hint at a city far more extensive and complex than early surveys suggested, a metropolis whose full scale continues to elude researchers, leaving a tantalizing gap in the story of pre-Columbian America. Cahokia's known heart, Monk's Mound, rises nearly 30 meters above the surrounding floodplain, a monumental testament to human labor and societal organization. From this vantage point, one can imagine a city designed with deliberate planning, ceremonial plazas, residential districts, and clusters of smaller mounds aligned along cardinal points, reflecting an intricate cosmology. Yet beyond the central area, geophysical surveys and aerial imaging reveal anomalies, patterns of embankments, depressions, and mounds obscured by forest and farmland. These features suggest lost neighborhoods, possibly occupied by artisans, farmers, or elite families whose contributions to Cahokia society remain invisible in the archaeological record. How large was the city at its peak? How did these peripheral areas interact with the ceremonial core? And what stories of daily life do they hold? The history of Cahokia is a study in scale and sophistication. At its height, between 1050 and 1250 CE, the city may have housed tens of thousands of inhabitants, rivaling contemporary urban centers elsewhere in the world. Its influence extended across the Mississippi Valley, connecting distant communities through trade networks that moved exotic shells, copper, chert, and other materials across hundreds of miles. Monumental architecture, including plazas, platform mounds, and complex earthworks, indicates not only technical skill, but also a highly organized social hierarchy, with leaders commanding labor, resources, and ritual authority. Yet, much of this narrative is pieced together from surviving structures. The lost sections may contain further evidence of social, economic, or ritual activity that challenges current interpretations. The causes of Cahokia's partial disappearance remain a puzzle. Environmental change is often cited. Deforestation, soil depletion, and shifting river courses may have disrupted agriculture and forced population movement. Some scholars suggest that climatic fluctuations, including droughts, placed stress on food production, destabilizing the city's social order. Others propose that internal political strife, competition between elites, or religious upheaval contributed to abandonment. Yet the evidence is fragmentary, and the lost sections complicate the picture. Could these hidden neighborhoods reveal alternative narratives? Evidence of resilient communities, displaced populations, or specialized districts abandoned for reasons still undeciphered? The city's disappearance was likely multifaceted, a combination of environmental, social, and political pressures that remains obscured beneath centuries of sediment and vegetation. Technological advances have begun to illuminate these hidden areas. LiDAR scanning and ground-penetrating radar reveal subsurface structures, faint outlines of houses, embankments, and causeways once invisible to the human eye. These tools have uncovered the scale of habitation, suggesting that Cahokia extended well beyond what earlier researchers believed. Yet, interpretation remains challenging. How do these features connect to the city's known monuments? Were they ritual precincts, agricultural hubs, or residential compounds? Each discovery raises new questions, emphasizing the city's complexity and the limits of our understanding. The more we uncover, the more it becomes clear that Cahokia's lost sections may hold secrets vital to understanding not only the city itself, but the broader Mississippian world. The cultural significance of Cahokia endures in both tangible and intangible forms. Descendant communities, including modern Native American tribes, preserve oral traditions and historical memory, emphasizing the spiritual and social importance of the city. Mounds were not merely architectural feats. They were expressions of cosmology, power, and identity. Rituals, feasts, and ceremonies held on these structures reinforced social cohesion and the city's connection to celestial cycles. The lost sections, therefore, may represent more than residential or economic zones. They could reveal the spaces where social, political, and spiritual life intersected in ways that remain invisible from the surviving monuments. How did these communities negotiate daily life while participating in a city of such grandeur and ritual intensity? Exploring Cahokia's hidden areas also highlights the fragility of archaeological memory. Centuries of cultivation, erosion, and urban encroachment have obscured many structures, making reconstruction difficult. Sites once visible on the landscape are now covered, misidentified, or destroyed. Yet even beneath this concealment, the traces remain. Soil anomalies, subtle elevations, and deposits of artifacts hint at streets, homes, and ceremonial spaces long forgotten. Each hidden mound or buried structure is a reminder that history is layered, contingent, and often incomplete, requiring careful interpretation, patience, and imagination to uncover. Standing in the open floodplain, gazing across the faint rises and depressions that mark Cahokia's lost sections, one can envision a city alive with movement, labor, and ceremony. Families cultivating gardens, artisans crafting tools and ornaments, priests conducting rituals atop mounds, and leaders walking along ceremonial avenues, all rhythms of life that left impressions in earth and memory. And yet, much of this city remains unseen, its full extent hidden beneath centuries of natural and human transformation. What else lies buried beneath these fields? How did peripheral neighborhoods shape the social, political, and spiritual dynamics of the metropolis? Cahokia's lost sections serve as a testament to both human ingenuity and impermanence. They remind us that cities, no matter how monumental or influential, are subject to environmental pressures, social change, and the passage of time. They invite reflection on what is preserved, what is lost, and what remains waiting to be discovered, offering a quiet but profound lesson in the impermanence of human endeavor and the enduring allure of hidden history. In the vast, shifting sands of the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter of Arabia, lies a city whose very existence teeters between history and legend. Ubar, sometimes called the Atlantis of the Sands. Today, the site is an expanse of dunes, gravel plains, and traces of old caravan tracks, where wind has erased almost all visible structures. Yet beneath the desert's relentless embrace, satellite imagery, ground surveys, and ancient narratives hint at a once thriving settlement at the heart of a network of trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula to the wider ancient world. Walking across this desolate landscape, one is struck by the contrast between the harsh, unyielding desert and the vision of a city that must have once pulsed with commerce, ritual, and human ingenuity. Ubar occupies a unique place in historical and cultural memory. Classical sources, Arab geographers, and Bedouin oral traditions refer to a city famed for its wealth, its frankincense trade, and its sudden disappearance, swallowed by the sands or lost to time. Archaeological investigations suggest that Ubar may have been strategically located at the crossroads of the frankincense and spice routes, linking southern Arabia to the Levant, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. Caravans carrying precious resins, myrrh, and other commodities would have converged here, exchanging goods, knowledge, and culture. But was Ubar a single centralized city, or a collection of fortified caravan stops and settlements whose importance waxed and waned with the trade that sustained them? The traces left behind hint at both possibilities, yet neither answer is complete. Modern exploration adds layers to the mystery. In the 1990s, satellite imagery revealed subsurface formations, ancient tracks, foundations, and possible settlement outlines, leading some archaeologists to propose a precise location for Ubar. Excavations uncovered remnants of walls, fortifications, and wells, confirming human habitation in an area long thought uninhabitable. Yet, the scale and nature of the settlement remain debated. Was it a great city of regional power, or a hub of caravans and traders adapted to the desert's rhythm? Could the desert itself have contributed to its legend, erasing physical evidence and amplifying stories of wealth, disappearance, and divine punishment? Environmental factors are central to Ubar's story. The empty quarter is one of the harshest environments on Earth, with extreme heat, scarce water, and vast, shifting dunes. How did a city survive here for centuries, let alone flourish? Archaeological evidence suggests sophisticated water management systems, including cisterns and wells, possibly fed by ancient underground aquifers. The surrounding region may have supported date palms, limited agriculture, and grazing lands, allowing for sustenance alongside trade. Yet even these adaptations could not fully protect Ubar from climatic shifts, sand encroachment, or changing trade routes, factors that may have contributed to its eventual decline. Was its disappearance sudden, as legend suggests, or gradual, erased by environmental pressures and human adaptation? The answer remains tantalizingly out of reach. Historical accounts add to the aura of mystery. Ptolemaic and Arab sources describe a city renowned for wealth and luxury, yet destined for destruction due to divine judgment or human hubris. Bedouin traditions speak of entire caravans and palaces swallowed by the desert overnight, creating a narrative that blurs the line between history and myth. Could these stories reflect real events, flooding of underground aquifers, sandstorms, or abandonment due to economic collapse? Or do they represent allegorical warnings about impermanence and human folly? The interplay of legend and archaeology makes Ubar both tangible and elusive, grounding the city in history while inviting speculation. Trade and economy were likely the lifeblood of Ubar. The frankincense routes, stretching from Dhofar in modern Oman to the Mediterranean, connected distant civilizations, and Ubar occupied a central position in this network. Archaeological finds, Pottery shards, inscriptions, and remnants of trade goods indicate sustained interaction with Mesopotamia, the Levant, and Egypt. These discoveries suggest a city that was cosmopolitan in its own way, adapting to the desert's challenges while engaging with distant cultures. Yet much of this material is fragmentary, leaving questions about social hierarchy, governance, and urban planning unanswered. How did Ubar's inhabitants organize their society amid the vast desert? What rituals, festivals, or administrative systems structured life in such an extreme environment? The physical traces hint at sophistication, but conceal the full story. The desert itself shapes the perception of Ubar. Shifting sands have erased streets, walls, and public spaces, leaving only hints of foundations and dried wells. Yet this very erasure fuels the legend, transforming a practical settlement into a fabled lost city. Explorers and archaeologists walking the dunes sense both absence and presence, imagining markets bustling with traders, camel caravans resting in shade, priests conducting ceremonies, and merchants counting profits in a city on the edge of the desert. How much of Ubar's true extent lies hidden beneath the sands, preserved from discovery yet tantalizingly close to revelation? What stories remain buried, waiting for patient eyes and careful excavation? Standing in the vast emptiness today, one can almost hear the echoes of the past, the grinding of camel hooves, the chatter of merchants negotiating goods, the prayers of a desert city that dared to thrive against the elements. Yet, the sands remind us that impermanence is a constant, that even the most ambitious human settlements are vulnerable to nature, politics, and economic shifts. Ubar's story endures because it is both real and legendary, archaeological and mythic, tangible and mysterious. The mystery of Ubar persists because much remains unseen, unexcavated, or destroyed by time. How extensive was the city, and how deeply were its residents connected to the wider ancient world? How did the desert shape their lives, culture, and spiritual practices? And ultimately, what truths lie beneath the dunes, waiting to be revealed? Ubar invites exploration, reflection, and imagination, standing as a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and the enigmatic forces of history that can transform cities into legends. Off the eastern coast of Pohnpei, an island in the federated states of Micronesia, lies an archipelago unlike any other, a city of stone rising from the sea itself. Nan Madol, often called the Venice of the Pacific, sprawls across a lagoon of basalt columns and artificial islets, each one meticulously constructed to form ceremonial, residential, and political spaces. From a distance, the city appears almost spectral. Jagged stone walls jut from the water, reflecting in calm lagoons, suggesting an otherworldly civilization capable of shaping its environment with precision and ambition. Walking among the ruins today, one is immediately struck by the sheer audacity of its builders, the scale of human labor, and the persistent enigma of how such a city could have been raised in an otherwise remote and tropical setting. Nan Madol was the ceremonial and political center of the Saudalur dynasty, which ruled Pohnpei for centuries, and its construction likely began around 1200 CE. The city comprises nearly 100 artificial islets, formed by stacking basalt logs and coral fill, connected by narrow canals that functioned as navigable waterways. Its layout reveals a complex understanding of engineering, urban planning, and social organization, with designated spaces for religious rituals, royal residences, and administrative functions. Temples, tombs, and dwellings were not merely utilitarian. They were monumental statements of power and devotion, designed to impress both inhabitants and visitors. Yet the city's construction raises profound questions. How were massive basalt columns transported across the islands? What methods allowed for such precision in placement without modern machinery? And why choose this lagooned environment over the mainland? Each answer seems to deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. The society that created Nan Madol was highly stratified. Oral traditions and early anthropological studies describe a dynasty of rulers whose authority was both spiritual and political, legitimized by their capacity to construct and maintain this extraordinary city. The labor required to build the islets, quarry and move basalt columns, and maintain canals must have been immense, implying a population organized with remarkable discipline and resources. Yet, despite its apparent stability and sophistication, the city was eventually abandoned. Some theories point to environmental changes, rising sea levels, shifting coastlines, or soil depletion, while others suggest social unrest, dynastic collapse, or external pressures may have contributed. Did the very location that made Nan Madol awe-inspiring also contain the seeds of its decline? And what remnants of its social and ceremonial life remain hidden beneath the rubble and vegetation that now cloaks its foundations? Archaeology offers glimpses, but also amplifies questions. Excavations reveal coral and basalt structures meticulously aligned, ceremonial platforms, and tombs containing human remains, yet large portions of the city remain unexplored or inaccessible. The distribution of structures suggests careful planning with symbolic meaning, perhaps reflecting cosmology, lineage, or spiritual hierarchy. The city's design also hints at defensive considerations, with narrow canals limiting access and controlling movement within its confines. Yet despite these observations, the techniques used to erect massive stone walls, sometimes up to several meters high, remain poorly understood. How did a relatively small island population achieve such feats, and how did they sustain labor and resources over decades of construction? Legends of Nan Madol add layers of intrigue that blend with the archaeological record. Local lore speaks of twin sorcerers, the Saudeleurs, who used magical power to raise the islets and subdue the people. Stories suggest that the city was intentionally isolated, a place of concentrated authority and sacred control, where rulers wielded extraordinary influence over their subjects. While these narratives are mythological, they reflect the perception of Nan Madol as a place apart, a site imbued with mystery and otherworldly power. Could there be practical truths hidden within these tales? Knowledge of labor organization, social hierarchy, or sacred practice encoded in myth? The interplay between legend and evidence challenges us to consider the city not merely as ruins, but as a space where belief, power, and construction converged in profound ways. Environmental context further compounds the mystery. Pohnpei's tropical climate brings frequent storms, intense rainfall, and high humidity, yet Nan Madol's stone foundations have endured for centuries. Canals, once navigable, now silted and overgrown, hint at a hydraulic understanding that may have been critical for transportation, resource management, and flood control. The city's placement along the lagoon allowed access by boat, facilitating trade, ritual movement, and communication, yet it also exposed the islets to environmental stress. Was the city abandoned gradually as environmental pressures mounted, or was there a sudden event that disrupted its stability? Even with modern techniques, the precise mechanisms of its decline remain elusive. Standing among the towering basalt walls and narrow waterways, one can imagine Nan Madol as it once was, a city alive with ceremonial procession, commerce, and political intrigue. Priests performing rituals on elevated platforms, workers moving basalt columns with ingenuity, and rulers asserting dominance over a dispersed population. All rhythms of life now silent, yet encoded in stone. Even as vegetation reclaims the islets and the water laps against weathered foundations, the city communicates its story, demanding reflection on human ambition, ingenuity, and impermanence. Nan Madol's mysteries endure because so much remains hidden, submerged in vegetation, silt, and legend. How were the islets planned, quarried, and constructed? What daily lives unfolded across these artificial islands? And what social structures maintained such an extraordinary undertaking? And ultimately, what truths lie buried in its labyrinthine canals and unexcavated platforms, waiting to reveal themselves to those who search patiently and thoughtfully? Nan Madol stands as both a monument to human creativity and a reminder of the enduring allure of lost cities, inviting curiosity, contemplation, and wonder at the civilizations that once shaped the edges of the known world. On the windswept shores of Orkney, Scotland, where the North Sea meets rolling grassy dunes, lies Skara Brae, a Neolithic village frozen in time. Yet evidence suggests that this remarkable settlement was not alone. Archaeologists and historians speak of its twin settlement, a site now largely lost to erosion and the relentless forces of sea and weather. While Skara Brae itself has been meticulously excavated, revealing stone-built homes, hearths, and communal spaces, the twin settlement exists primarily in whispers. Traces of foundations, subtle soil depressions, and scattered artifacts hint at a companion community whose full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. Standing on the cliff edge, gazing across the tidal flats where the lost settlement may once have thrived, one senses the delicate interplay between human ingenuity and the unforgiving northern environment. Skara Brae, built around 3180 BCE, is remarkable for its sophistication. Stone walls, built-in furniture, and intricate drainage systems suggest a people with an advanced understanding of construction and domestic planning. But if this village represents one nucleus of habitation, the existence of a twin settlement points to a more extensive social landscape, one in which multiple communities coexisted, interacted, and shared resources. Why did these settlements cluster along this rugged coastline? Were they independent communities connected by kinship and trade, or did they serve complementary functions, one ceremonial, one residential? The very notion of a twin site challenges our understanding of Neolithic social organization, suggesting a complexity rarely attributed to early European societies. The twin settlement, now largely erased by centuries of coastal erosion and agricultural activity, has left only subtle clues, outlines detectable through aerial surveys, fragments of pottery, and occasional stonework partially buried in the shifting sands. Even these remnants hint at carefully planned domestic architecture, mirroring the known structures at Skara Brae, with homes arranged in a linear or clustered fashion, hearths at their centers, and passageways connecting dwellings. How large was this settlement in its prime? How many families lived there, and what roles did they play in the wider community? These questions remain unanswered, leaving archaeologists to piece together narratives from fragmentary evidence, imagination, and comparison to its better-preserved neighbor. The environmental context is crucial to understanding why the twin settlement, like Skara Brae itself, eventually vanished. Rising sea levels, storm surges, and shifting sands would have gradually rendered the site uninhabitable. Was the abandonment sudden, forced by a catastrophic storm, or slow, a gradual retreat inland over generations? How did these early inhabitants respond to changing tides, coastal erosion, and resource scarcity? The twin settlement embodies the tension between human settlement and environmental fragility, serving as a reminder that even seemingly stable communities are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Artifacts recovered near the supposed twin site offer tantalizing glimpses into daily life. Pottery shards, stone tools, and shell ornaments hint at a people engaged in fishing, hunting, and limited agriculture. Stone axes, finely crafted, speak to specialized labor and skill, while evidence of food storage and hearth construction reveals a concern for both sustenance and social organization. These fragments suggest a vibrant, self-sufficient community with connections to the wider region, yet their incompleteness only amplifies the mystery. How did these people organize labor, allocate resources, or conduct social and ritual activities? And how much of this knowledge has been permanently lost to the sea and sand? The twin settlement also raises questions about social and ceremonial life. Skara Brae shows evidence of communal spaces where families could interact. But what about its companion site? Could it have contained specialized structures for rituals, storage of surplus, or craft production? Was there a hierarchy, perhaps subtle, reflected in the size or placement of homes? While speculation must remain cautious, the parallels between Skara Brae and the twin settlement suggest a sophisticated social system, one that coordinated architecture, environment, and community life with remarkable efficiency. Exploration and technology offer glimpses into the lost site, but interpretation is challenging. Ground-penetrating radar and aerial surveys detect anomalies, linear depressions, stone concentrations, and unusual soil patterns that may correspond to buried walls or streets. Yet the twin settlement resists full reconstruction. Each layer of soil conceals both material evidence and questions. Were these foundations contemporaneous with Skara Brae, or do they reflect earlier or later occupation? How did seasonal migration, resource availability, and environmental shifts influence settlement patterns? These uncertainties underscore the delicate relationship between human ambition and the natural world, particularly in marginal landscapes. The story of Skara Brae's twin settlement is, ultimately, a meditation on impermanence. Coastal erosion and human activity have erased much of its material culture, leaving only traces to guide the imagination. Yet, even in its absence, the settlement communicates across millennia about resilience, adaptation, and the subtle complexities of Neolithic life. The twin site invites us to reconsider what we know about early European communities, suggesting that sophistication, planning, and social organization were not confined to a single village, but were part of a broader, interconnected landscape. Standing on the Orkney cliffs today, one can envision the twin settlement at its height. Stone homes clustered around central hearths, families engaged in fishing and crafting, and pathways linking one house to another and to Skara Brae itself. The North Sea winds carry echoes of human life, faint but persistent, reminding us that the twin village, though largely lost, was once a hub of social, domestic, and perhaps ceremonial activity. What stories remain hidden beneath the soil, waiting for patient eyes and careful excavation? How did this companion community interact with Skara Brae, and what does it reveal about the resilience, ingenuity, and impermanence of human settlements? The twin settlement remains a silent, enduring enigma, a testament to both what is preserved and what has been forever lost to time and tide. On the windswept shores of Orkney, Scotland, where the North Sea meets rolling grassy dunes, lies Skara Brae, a Neolithic village frozen in time. Yet, evidence suggests that this remarkable settlement was not alone. Archaeologists and historians speak of its twin settlement, a site now largely lost to erosion and the relentless forces of sea and weather. While Skara Brae itself has been meticulously excavated, revealing stone-built homes, hearths, and communal spaces, the twin settlement exists primarily in whispers. Traces of foundations, subtle soil depressions, and scattered artifacts hint at a companion community whose full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. Standing on the cliff edge, gazing across the tidal flats where the lost settlement may once have thrived, one senses the delicate interplay between human ingenuity and the unforgiving northern environment. Skara Brae, built around 3180 BCE, is remarkable for its sophistication. Stone walls, built-in furniture, and intricate drainage systems suggest a people with an advanced understanding of construction and domestic planning. But if this village represents one nucleus of habitation, the existence of a twin settlement points to a more extensive social landscape, one in which multiple communities coexisted, interacted, and shared resources. Why did these settlements cluster along this rugged coastline? Were they independent communities connected by kinship and trade, or did they serve complementary functions, one ceremonial, one residential? The very notion of a twin site challenges our understanding of Neolithic social organization, suggesting a complexity rarely attributed to early European societies. The twin settlement, now largely erased by centuries of coastal erosion and agricultural activity, has left only subtle clues, outlines detectable through aerial surveys, fragments of pottery, and occasional stonework partially buried in the shifting sands. Even these remnants hint at carefully planned domestic architecture, mirroring the known structures at Skara Brae, with homes arranged in a linear or clustered fashion, hearths at their centers, and passageways connecting dwellings. How large was this settlement in its prime? How many families lived there, and what roles did they play in the wider community? These questions remain unanswered, leaving archaeologists to piece together narratives from fragmentary evidence, imagination, and comparison to its better preserved neighbor. The environmental context is crucial to understanding why the twin settlement, like Skara Brae itself, eventually vanished. Rising sea levels, storm surges, and shifting sands would have gradually rendered the site uninhabitable. Was the abandonment sudden, forced by a catastrophic storm, or slow, a gradual retreat inland over generations? How did these early inhabitants respond to changing tides, coastal erosion, and resource scarcity? The twin settlement embodies the tension between human settlement and environmental fragility, serving as a reminder that even seemingly stable communities are vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Artifacts recovered near the supposed twin site offer tantalizing glimpses into daily life. Pottery shards, stone tools, and shell ornaments hint at a people engaged in fishing, hunting, and limited agriculture. Stone axes, finely crafted, speak to specialized labor and skill, while evidence of food storage and hearth construction reveals a concern for both sustenance and social organization. These fragments suggest a vibrant, self-sufficient community with connections to the wider region, yet their incompleteness only amplifies the mystery. How did these people organize labor, allocate resources, or conduct social and ritual activities? And how much of this knowledge has been permanently lost to the sea and sand? The twin settlement also raises questions about social and ceremonial life. Skara Brae shows evidence of communal spaces where families could interact, but what about its companion site? Could it have contained specialized structures for rituals, storage of surplus, or craft production? Was there a hierarchy, perhaps subtle, reflected in the size or placement of homes? While speculation must remain cautious, the parallels between Skara Brae and the twin settlement suggest a sophisticated social system, one that coordinated architecture, environment, and community life with remarkable efficiency. Exploration and technology offer glimpses into the lost site, but interpretation is challenging. Ground-penetrating radar and aerial surveys detect anomalies, linear depressions, stone concentrations, and unusual soil patterns that may correspond to buried walls or streets. Yet the twin settlement resists full reconstruction. Each layer of soil conceals both material evidence and questions. Were these foundations contemporaneous with Skara Brae, or do they reflect earlier or later occupation? How did seasonal migration, resource availability, and environmental shifts influence settlement patterns? These uncertainties underscore the delicate relationship between human ambition and the natural world, particularly in marginal landscapes. The story of Skara Brae's twin settlement is, ultimately, a meditation on impermanence. Coastal erosion and human activity have erased much of its material culture, leaving only traces to guide the imagination. Yet even in its absence, the settlement communicates across millennia about resilience, adaptation, and the subtle complexities of Neolithic life. The twin site invites us to reconsider what we know about early European communities, suggesting that sophistication, planning, and social organization were not confined to a single village, but were part of a broader, interconnected landscape. Standing on the Orkney cliffs today, one can envision the twin settlement at its height. Stone homes clustered around central hearths, families engaged in fishing and crafting, and pathways linking one house to another and to Skara Brae itself. The North Sea winds carry echoes of human life, faint but persistent, reminding us that the twin village, though largely lost, was once a hub of social, domestic, and perhaps ceremonial activity. What stories remain hidden beneath the soil, waiting for patient eyes and careful excavation? How did this companion community interact with Skara Brae? And what does it reveal about the resilience, ingenuity, and impermanence of human settlements? The twin settlement remains a silent, enduring enigma, a testament to both what is preserved and what has been forever lost to time and tide. Along the southwestern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, where the Guadalquivir River winds toward the Atlantic, there once flourished a city whose name evokes fascination, wealth, and enduring mystery: Tartessos. To modernize, the landscape is serene, dominated by riverbanks, fertile plains, and scattered wetlands. Yet beneath this tranquil surface lies the whisper of a civilization that may have been among the most prosperous of the ancient Mediterranean. Tartessos is described in classical Greek and Roman sources as a land of gold, silver, and thriving trade, a city whose splendor rivaled the great powers of its time. Yet today, its exact location remains elusive, buried beneath centuries of sediment, agricultural development, and the inexorable march of history. Classical texts speak of Tartessos as a wealthy and highly organized urban center, inhabited by people skilled in metallurgy, agriculture, and maritime trade. Legends suggest that the city was ruled by powerful kings, whose influence extended across Iberia and reached distant Mediterranean cultures. Some ancient accounts describe elaborate palaces, temples, and marketplaces bustling with merchants trading metals, ceramics, and precious goods. How accurate are these descriptions? Did Tartessos truly rival the great cities of Greece and Phoenicia, or have myth and admiration embellished the historical reality? The tantalizing accounts hint at a civilization both sophisticated and enigmatic, leaving archaeologists and historians to piece together fragments of evidence from river sediments, ancient texts, and scattered artifacts. Geography plays a central role in Tartessos' allure. The city is believed to have been located near the mouth of the Guadalquivir, a natural hub for maritime commerce, where ships could navigate inland and connect with distant cultures. Archaeological surveys have uncovered signs of early settlements, trading posts, and mineral exploitation along the river valley, suggesting a network of communities that may have contributed to the city's legendary wealth. How did the inhabitants manage trade, navigation, and diplomacy in this dynamic environment? Did the city's prosperity depend solely on its natural resources? Or were there advanced social and economic systems at play that allowed it to dominate regional commerce for centuries? The mystery deepens when considering Tartessos' disappearance. Classical sources suggest that the city vanished abruptly, swallowed by natural forces, or abandoned due to political upheaval. Some scholars propose that flooding from the Guadalquivir, earthquakes, or rising waters may have contributed to its decline, while others point to invasions, internal conflict, or shifts in trade routes. Could Tartessos have been deliberately erased from memory by environmental catastrophe, leaving only fragments in legends and oral tradition? Or did its disappearance occur gradually, as economic and social pressures redirected human settlement across Iberia? Each hypothesis offers compelling possibilities, but few definitive answers. Artifacts linked to Tartessos provide glimpses into its material culture and societal complexity. Ancient metallurgy, particularly silver and gold work, reveals skilled artisans capable of producing intricate jewelry, ceremonial objects, and coins. Pottery, inscriptions, and remnants of architecture hint at a city structured around both residential and public spaces, possibly with designated quarters for artisans, merchants, and religious leaders. Yet these traces are fragmentary, often found far from the presumed city center, leaving questions about urban planning, population size, and daily life. How did the inhabitants balance economic activity, religious practice, and governance? And what techniques allowed them to harness the resources of rivers, mines, and fertile plains so effectively? Trade, wealth, and influence appear central to Tartessos' identity. Its strategic location allowed contact with Phoenicians, Greeks, and other Mediterranean cultures, facilitating exchange of not only goods, but ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. Greek accounts describe Tartessian ships laden with silver, gold, and tin, creating a city that inspired admiration and envy. Yet, how much of this trade was centralized in Tartessos itself, and how much was dispersed across a network of smaller settlements? Could the so-called lost city have been a capital within a broader regional economy, whose influence extended far beyond its immediate walls? The legends surrounding Tartessos also contribute to its allure. Greek historians describe kings with immense wealth, cities of opulent splendor, and subterranean chambers filled with treasure. Later, medieval Iberian traditions hinted at Tartessos as a semi-mythical kingdom of riches, wisdom, and mystery. Are these stories rooted in reality, exaggerated through centuries of storytelling, or symbolic reflections of human fascination with prosperity and impermanence? The interplay between history and myth transforms Tartessos from a mere archaeological site into a symbol of human ambition, resilience, and the fragile balance between civilization and nature. Modern exploration continues to search for definitive evidence of Tartessos. Excavations along the Guadalquivir and surrounding wetlands have revealed early urban settlements, fortified structures, and signs of mining activity, yet none can be conclusively identified as the legendary city. Sediment layers, watercourses, and centuries of human activity obscure the site, challenging researchers to reconstruct its past. Could advanced geophysical surveys, underwater archaeology, or refined sediment analysis reveal traces long hidden beneath the river's shifting paths? Or has time and nature forever claimed the city, leaving only tantalizing hints and enduring questions? Standing on the banks of the Guadalquivir today, one can imagine Tartessos in its prime, bustling markets where metals and exotic goods change hands, grand palaces where rulers deliberate over trade and diplomacy, and ceremonial spaces where spiritual and civic life intertwine. The fertile river valley supports fields of grain and orchards, while vessels sail along the estuary, linking Tartessos to distant civilizations. Yet, the city remains elusive, its precise location unknown, its full story untold. What remains buried beneath mud, silt, and the passage of millennia? How did this city rise to legendary prominence, and why did it vanish so completely from the historical record? Tartessos endures as both a historical enigma and a symbol of the impermanence of even the most prosperous civilizations, inviting curiosity, exploration, and contemplation. Far beneath the waves of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, legends speak of a landmass that once connected continents, a civilization lost to the relentless power of the sea. Lemuria. To the modern observer, the ocean appears vast and inscrutable, its depths concealing untold secrets. But the notion of Lemuria evokes visions of sunken cities, advanced societies, and cultural connections that predate known history. Unlike other lost cities whose ruins cling to land or riverbanks, Lemuria exists primarily in whispers, maps, and speculation. A city, or perhaps an entire continent, that challenges our understanding of human settlement, migration, and the delicate balance between civilization and nature. The concept of Lemuria emerged in the 19th century when geologists noted unusual similarities in flora and fauna between Madagascar, India, and other distant regions. To explain these patterns, scientists hypothesized a land bridge, submerged over millennia, that allowed species, and possibly humans, to traverse vast oceans. Over time, this idea became intertwined with legend, myth, and speculation about a sunken civilization of extraordinary sophistication. Could there have been people living on this lost land, shaping their environment, building cities, and engaging in trade long before the rise of recorded civilizations? If so, what traces, if any, have survived beneath the shifting tides? Descriptions of Lemuria blend geological theory with imaginative reconstruction. Writers and mystics imagined cities of stone and coral, ports along vast inland seas, and temples where advanced knowledge and spiritual practice flourished. Some accounts suggest that Lemuria was a hub for early maritime technology, astronomy, and cultural exchange, linking distant peoples across the oceans. While these notions remain speculative, they reflect a desire to reconcile evidence of ancient complexity with the mysterious gaps in our historical record. Could the legends preserve fragments of truth, memories of migrations, lost knowledge, or settlements swallowed by rising seas? Or do they reveal the human tendency to create narratives for that which cannot be fully explained? The submersion of Lemuria is itself a source of fascination and inquiry. Rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age reshaped coastlines worldwide, and tectonic activity may have contributed to the disappearance of low-lying land. Tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions could have obliterated settlements, erasing structures and infrastructure from memory. If a civilization existed here, it would have had to adapt continuously to environmental stressors, developing architecture, agriculture, and social organization capable of withstanding a volatile landscape. Yet no conclusive archaeological evidence has been found above water, leaving only fragments, anomalous stones, submerged structures, or cultural echoes in distant regions that hint at the possibility of a sunken world. Lemuria also occupies a space between science and speculation. While the original geological hypothesis has largely been replaced by plate tectonics and continental drift, the idea of a lost land endures, inspiring legends across cultures. Some theories link Lemuria to early migrations in the Indian Ocean, suggesting that humans may have traversed these regions long before conventional history records. Could oral traditions, myths, and megalithic structures in Madagascar, India, and other locations contain faint memories of Lemuria's existence? How do we separate the traces of real human activity from the embellishments of imagination? And is such a distinction even meaningful when the landscape itself has been transformed beyond recognition? The idea of Lemuria invites contemplation of scale and time. Unlike cities bound to a river, desert, or coast, this lost civilization, if it existed, would have been shaped by forces far larger than any individual community. The slow rise and fall of sea levels, the movement of tectonic plates, the shifting patterns of ocean currents. How did these hypothetical inhabitants understand their environment, organize their labor, and sustain culture in a land vulnerable to permanent disappearance? The mystery of Lemuria reminds us that human ambition, ingenuity, and resilience are often tested by natural forces, and that even the grandest achievements may be erased with little trace. Legends suggest a society deeply connected to both environment and cosmology. Temples, ceremonial centers, and observatories imagined on Lemuria hint at an advanced knowledge of astronomy, navigation, and perhaps even energy harnessing. Could these ideas reflect real practices, or are they projections of later imagination seeking to fill gaps in the historical record? Regardless, the narrative of Lemuria embodies both curiosity and awe. The notion that somewhere, beneath the ocean waves, human endeavor once reached heights now lost to time. Each whispered tale, each fragment of stone or fossil that inspires speculation, adds layers to our understanding, or our longing, to comprehend what was. For modern explorers, Lemuria remains a tantalizing enigma. Submerged landscapes are difficult to investigate. Deep-sea mapping and underwater archaeology have revealed structures and anomalies whose significance remains debated. Are these natural formations, remnants of ancient settlements, or artifacts of human ingenuity now lost to the depths? How much of the ocean floor holds evidence of vanished civilizations, waiting patiently beneath sand, coral, and sediment? Lemuria challenges not only our perception of history, but also the tools and imagination required to interpret it. Standing on the shorelines of Madagascar, India, or the scattered islands of the Indian Ocean today, one can almost envision Lemuria's vanished landscapes, bustling harbors, elevated cities of stone, agricultural terraces and canals, and ceremonial centers alive with ritual and community life. Waves lap where streets and plazas may once have existed, and the wind carries whispers of human ambition and ingenuity erased by time. How much of our collective past has been submerged, hidden from view, yet shaping our myths, migrations, and cultural memory? Lemuria endures as a symbol of both possibility and uncertainty, an invitation to wonder, to explore, and to question the impermanence of civilization itself. Deep within the dense, verdant rainforests of South America, where mist clings to the canopy and rivers carve labyrinthine paths through the land, legend speaks of a city glittering with gold, El Dorado. To the European explorers of the 16th century, this was no mere myth. It was a promise of unimaginable wealth, a civilization where rivers ran with precious metals and palaces gleamed with sunlit splendor. Yet for all the expeditions, maps, and tales, El Dorado has never been conclusively found. Its location remains uncertain, obscured by dense jungle, shifting river courses, and centuries of speculation, leaving the city suspended between history, legend, and human imagination. The origins of the El Dorado myth are rooted in the indigenous cultures of the Andes and the Guyana highlands. Early accounts describe a ritual king, the Gilded One, who would cover himself in gold dust and dive into a sacred lake, offering treasures to the gods. These ceremonies, rich with symbolism, were misunderstood by European eyes as evidence of a golden city, sparking a frenzy of exploration and conquest. Was there ever a singular city of gold, or was the legend an allegorical reflection of wealth, ritual, and spiritual power? How did such stories evolve from sacred rites to the promise of a city whose riches could rival the sun itself? The allure of El Dorado lies not only in its supposed material wealth but in its perceived perfection, a city harmonious with nature, elevated by culture and spirituality, yet so tantalizingly out of reach. Explorers described mountainsides dotted with settlements, riverbanks lined with ceremonial platforms, and gold-encrusted temples whose grandeur defied imagination. Archaeology has uncovered remnants of advanced pre-Columbian civilizations, such as the Muisca and other Andean cultures, that practiced sophisticated metallurgy, agriculture, and urban planning. Could these real communities have inspired the tales, exaggerated across time by eager narrators and hopeful adventurers? Or is there a lost site, hidden by geography and time, still waiting beneath the forest floor? The geography of the region both conceals and protects these mysteries. Thick jungle, treacherous rivers, and seasonal floods have eroded evidence and deterred exploration. Over centuries, rivers have shifted, sediment has buried settlements, and human activity has altered landscapes. How many cities, towns, or ceremonial centers might lie hidden beneath this ever-changing terrain? Could the grandeur of El Dorado be a composite of multiple settlements, myths, and ceremonial sites, stitched together by storytelling into the notion of a single, dazzling metropolis? Each expedition uncovers fragments, ceramic shards, gold ornaments, or terraced platforms, but rarely enough to confirm the legend in its entirety. El Dorado also raises questions about human ambition and desire. The European quest for gold brought both discovery and devastation. Conquest, disease, and cultural upheaval reshaped the continent and obscured the original contexts of these civilizations. In the pursuit of wealth, explorers often misinterpreted the symbolic practices of indigenous peoples, transforming spiritual rituals into maps of imagined treasure. Yet beneath the legend lies a persistent truth. The Americas were home to societies of remarkable sophistication, capable of intricate metallurgy, social organization, and ceremonial expression. Could understanding these societies bring us closer to the reality behind the myth? Or will El Dorado forever remain a shimmering phantom on the horizon? The interplay of myth, evidence, and imagination extends to modern interpretations. Remote sensing, archaeological surveys, and geophysical mapping have begun revealing pre-Columbian settlements in areas once thought inaccessible, suggesting complex networks of habitation that may have inspired tales of El Dorado. The richness of these sites, ceramics, gold artifacts, and ceremonial architecture, reveals human creativity and cultural expression, yet none match the grandeur described in legend. Was El Dorado ever a single city, or is it an emblem of human aspiration, a symbol of wealth, discovery, and the limits of understanding? The mystery challenges us to consider the power of stories and the persistence of memory across time and space. As we trace the rivers of Colombia, Venezuela, and the Guianas, imagining canoes gliding through misty waters and gold-dusted ceremonies unfolding along sacred lakes, El Dorado seems less a destination than a mirror of human desire. Its allure is timeless. The promise of discovery, the allure of abundance, and the unyielding question of what lies hidden beneath layers of earth, water, and imagination. Could the forests conceal platforms, dwellings, and artifacts yet to be unearthed? How much has been lost to natural processes, looting, or the simple erosion of time? And if found, what would the city tell us about the people who lived, worshipped, and thrived there? Standing at the edge of a jungle river today, one can envision El Dorado at its imagined height, a city alive with movement and ceremony, sunlight glinting off golden ornaments, the sounds of ritual echoing through terraces and plazas. But even as we picture this, the reality remains elusive, a place that exists as much in human imagination as in the historical record. Its mystery endures because it is tied not merely to physical ruins, but to the ideals, ambitions, and dreams of generations who sought to understand and claim the impossible. How much of history, wealth, and culture remains hidden beneath the forest floor, waiting for patient eyes to uncover it? El Dorado challenges us to explore, question, and wonder, reminding us that some cities vanish not only from maps, but from the very memory of the world, lingering as mysteries that inspire awe, reflection, and the enduring thrill of the unknown. In the arid plains of northern Syria, where the Euphrates River winds across a landscape of golden sands and sparse vegetation, lies the tell of Ebla, a city whose name once resonated across the ancient Near East. Today, the ruins are subtle, a mound rising gently from the earth, yet beneath this unassuming hill lies a civilization that flourished over 4,000 years ago. Ebla's discovery in the 1960s revealed not just stone foundations and remnants of palaces, but a sophisticated society whose influence stretched far beyond its walls. Yet, for all we have uncovered, much about Ebla remains mysterious, leaving archaeologists and historians to grapple with both evidence and enigma. At its height, Ebla was a powerful city-state, strategically positioned to control trade routes linking Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Levant. Excavations have revealed massive palace complexes, administrative archives, and thousands of clay tablets inscribed in a script that recorded everything from economic transactions to diplomatic correspondence. The scale of the city, its urban planning, and the sophistication of its bureaucracy suggest a civilization of remarkable complexity. How did Ebla achieve such prominence so early in history? And why did a city of such power eventually fade into obscurity, leaving only traces beneath the desert sands? The city's archives, discovered in the ruins of the palace, provide a tantalizing glimpse into its daily life and political structure. Clay tablets detail trade agreements, inventories of commodities, and lists of royal decrees. They reveal a city deeply engaged with the world beyond its borders, negotiating with distant powers, exchanging goods, and participating in a network of influence that spanned the Near East. Yet despite these records, many aspects of Ebla remain elusive. What were the lives of ordinary citizens like? How did religious beliefs, rituals, and social norms shape the fabric of the city? And what events led to the eventual abandonment and partial destruction of this once mighty urban center? Theories about Ebla's decline vary. Some suggest that invasions, possibly by the Akkadians under Sargon or later regional powers, led to its destruction. Others point to internal political turmoil or environmental changes that undermined agriculture and trade. Perhaps rising salinity in soils, shifts in water availability, or natural disasters forced inhabitants to relocate. Could a combination of these factors have led to the city's ultimate disappearance, leaving only ruins and written fragments to hint at its former grandeur? The truth is shrouded, layered beneath centuries of history and the shifting desert landscape. Ebla's architecture also provides clues to the sophistication and organization of its society. Remnants of palaces, temples, and fortified walls reveal advanced construction techniques and a careful attention to both security and ceremonial design. Streets, courtyards, and storage facilities suggest meticulous planning and a population capable of coordinated labor. Yet the extent of the city remains partially obscured, with parts lost to erosion, later settlement, and excavation limits. How extensive was Ebla at its peak, and what secrets might still lie buried beneath the sands, waiting to reveal the full scope of urban life in the early Bronze Age? Beyond its physical remains, Ebla's legacy is amplified by the tantalizing hints of cultural influence. The city's correspondence and trade networks suggest a society deeply enmeshed with surrounding civilizations, facilitating the flow of ideas, technology, and religious practices. Linguistic traces found in the archives indicate knowledge of multiple languages and diplomatic sophistication, implying a population both literate and politically astute. Could these intellectual achievements, preserved in clay and stone, point to aspects of Ebla's culture yet to be fully understood? How did these people perceive themselves, their city, and the wider world they inhabited? Ebla also invites reflection on memory, myth, and the impermanence of civilization. For centuries, its existence was known only through brief references in biblical and Near Eastern texts, often obscured by layers of legend and speculation. Its rediscovery revealed a city far more complex than previously imagined, yet even now, mysteries abound. What aspects of daily life, religion, and governance remain hidden? Could ongoing excavations uncover temples, archives, or artifacts that reshape our understanding of early urban societies in the Near East? The gaps in knowledge are as compelling as the discoveries themselves, prompting us to imagine a city of bustling markets, sacred rituals, and political intrigue, alive long before much of recorded history. Standing today at the Tell of Ebla, one can envision its streets bustling with merchants, artisans, and scribes, the air filled with the sounds of trade, conversation, and ceremony. Palaces and temples rise in the mind's eye, echoing the grandeur suggested by fragmented ruins and clay tablets. The Euphrates glimmers in the distance, hinting at the waterway that supported agriculture, trade, and communication, sustaining a city that once commanded influence across a vast region. Yet the city's ultimate fate, its destruction, abandonment, and partial erasure from memory, remains an enduring enigma. How much of Ebla's story is preserved beneath the soil, and how much has been lost forever? The city stands as both a testament to human ingenuity and a reminder of history's impermanence, inviting us to ponder what secrets still lie hidden, waiting for patient eyes to uncover them. In the fertile plains of the Indus River Valley, where the land stretches wide and flat under an endless sky, lie the echoes of an ancient civilization that has fascinated historians and archaeologists for over a century. While Mohenjo-Daro is known as one of the crowning achievements of the Indus Valley civilization, whispers of a parallel site, a sister city with striking similarities yet shrouded in mystery, invite speculation about the scale and complexity of urban life in this region. Unlike its more famous counterpart, this lost settlement has been elusive, partially obscured by shifting riverbeds, sediment, and the relentless passage of time, leaving fragments and anomalies that hint at a once thriving metropolis. Archaeologists have identified traces of planned streets, rectangular houses, and intricate drainage systems reminiscent of Mohenjo-Daro, suggesting a shared architectural and cultural blueprint. Yet, the site differs in subtle but significant ways. Its layout seems adapted to a different watercourse, its artifacts hint at distinct social or ritual practices, and some structural elements imply experimentation with construction techniques. How closely were these twin cities connected? Did they function as complementary hubs within a larger network, or were they independent centers of governance and commerce? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, buried beneath centuries of earth and water. The Indus Valley civilization, flourishing around 2500 BCE, is renowned for its sophistication. Organized urban planning, standardized weights and measures, and an economy supported by agriculture, trade, and craft specialization. Yet the story of Mohenjo-Daro's parallel site challenges even our understanding of this advanced society. Could this city represent a replication of social and architectural ideals, a deliberate expansion of urban life to accommodate population growth or trade networks? Or might it reflect a localized adaptation, responding to environmental conditions, access to resources, or security concerns? Each hypothesis opens new questions about the ingenuity and flexibility of one of the world's earliest urban cultures. Artifacts recovered from surveys and limited excavations suggest a rich material culture. Pottery, seals, and tools indicate both continuity with Mohenjo-Daro and unique innovations, hinting at the possibility of specialized craft or trade practices. Terracotta figurines and ceremonial objects suggest ritual and spiritual life, yet the scale and arrangement of sacred spaces remain speculative. Could these twin settlements have had distinct religious centers, or did they share a spiritual framework that connected citizens across miles of floodplains and waterways? The fragmentary evidence teases at a complex social landscape, one that may never be fully reconstructed. The geography of the region adds another layer of intrigue. Seasonal floods, shifting river channels, and the accumulation of silt over millennia have obscured much of the site, making systematic excavation difficult. Remote sensing and geophysical surveys have identified anomalies consistent with buried streets and structures, yet definitive confirmation is scarce. Could entire neighborhoods, administrative complexes, or marketplaces lie hidden beneath layers of sediment awaiting discovery? And if uncovered, how might they reshape our understanding of the Indus Valley civilization's urban distribution, trade networks, and societal hierarchy? The parallel site also raises broader questions about the disappearance of ancient cities. Mohenjo-Daro itself was largely abandoned around 1900 BCE, likely due to environmental change, river course shifts, or social upheaval. Did the parallel site suffer the same fate, or did it endure longer, perhaps maintaining a fragment of Indus culture even as other cities declined? How did these environmental and social pressures shape human settlement, migration, and resilience in the region? Each possibility underscores the fragility of urban life and the dramatic influence of nature on human history. Linguistic and administrative evidence, limited but compelling, adds another dimension to the mystery. Seals bearing Indus script symbols suggest that the city participated in record-keeping, trade, and communication networks that connected distant settlements. Yet, without a deciphered written record, the intentions, laws, and beliefs of its citizens remain tantalizingly opaque. Could the parallel city have been a hub for administration, trade, or ceremonial activities distinct from Mohenjo-Daro, or was it fully integrated into a regional system whose intricacies are now lost to time? The absence of narrative clarity invites both curiosity and humility, reminding us that much of history survives only in fragments. In considering the parallel site, one is struck by the scale of human ambition and ingenuity. Streets laid out with geometric precision, drainage systems engineered to cope with monsoon floods, and standardized construction materials all reflect a culture deeply attuned to both its environment and social organization. Yet, the city remains largely invisible, a ghostly counterpart to a civilization already veiled by time. How many lessons about adaptation, resilience, and urban planning might be buried beneath the soil? How much of human innovation is lost before it is ever recorded? And how do we interpret what remains? Standing today on the plains near the Indus, one can imagine the parallel site in its prime. Houses arranged along orderly streets, marketplaces bustling with merchants and craftspeople, ceremonial spaces alive with ritual, and citizens navigating a world carefully structured yet intimately connected with rivers, fields, and trade networks. Yet this city, like so many lost civilizations, offers more questions than answers. How deeply did it mirror Mohenjo-Daro? And in what ways did it innovate or diverge? What forces, natural, social, or political, led to its abandonment and concealment beneath layers of earth? The site remains a silent witness to human ingenuity, curiosity, and the impermanence of even the most sophisticated urban life, inviting us to explore, speculate, and wonder at what lies hidden just beyond reach.